MOUs. With access to governments and international forums, PhD CCI ensures that the voice of our members is heard by those who make decisions that ultimately affect their bottom line. The mission of the PhD CCI is to provide a proactive leadership role by providing quality services, to act as a catalyst for rapid economic development and prosperity through promotion of trade, industry and services, to strengthen technological advancement through effective industry-government research partnership, to emphasize productivity, improve work ethos and encourage business ethics, to effectively project credibility and commitment of business to the society at large. To support its members, the Chamber has expert committees, state committees and task force. PhD CCI brings together intense research, ideation and advocacy to support businesses. They support the members proactively through intense research and advocacies. Not only members, they also support the government in formulating prominent policies that support economic growth. With this, the Chamber brings out a unique opportunity to network nationally and internationally. PhD at its headquarters in Delhi and its regional offices at Chandigarh, Jaipur and Lucknow provides unique facilities for conferences and business networking events to its members. The prominent services of the PhD CCI are ideation and research on topical issues through expert committees and task forces, advisory services to business on corporate affairs, taxation, finance, capital markets, etc. Certification services for origin of goods for exporters and other documents, capacity development through trainings and workshops, interface services with central and state governments, corporate social responsibility through voluntary organization. So, an association with PhD CCI would add value to your business. PhD CCI offers memberships under the categories Patron, Star, Ordinary, Association and Professional. Benefits to Patron and Star members: get opportunities to be part of the Managing Committee, may get opportunity to be the Chair or Co-Chair of various committees, opportunity to be a delegation member to meet government and statutory bodies, get branding and publicity, to avail the facilities of the library and business lounge of the PhD Chamber. The Patron members and Star members will have their logos displayed on the PhD website and PhD Bulletin. Additionally, special discounts to members availing PhD CCI's infrastructure facilities. For more details, please visit our website www.phdcci.in. We welcome you to join PhD CCI, be a part of the golden story of more than a century, and be a part of the nation's growth. PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry symbolizes progress, harmony and development. For the last 116 years, PhD CCI has been serving the nation. PhD CCI reaches out to 150,000 companies with focus on the development of large, medium and small businesses. PhD CCI has co-opted national and international industry associations and organizations through over 151 global MOUs and more than 60 domestic MOUs. With access to governments and international forums, PhD CCI ensures that the voice of our members is heard by those who make decisions that ultimately affect their bottom line. The mission of the PhD CCI is to provide a proactive leadership role by providing quality services, to act as a catalyst for rapid economic development and prosperity through promotion of trade, industry and services, to strengthen technological advancement through effective industry-government research partnership, to emphasize productivity, improve work ethos and encourage business ethics, to effectively project credibility and commitment of business to the society at large. To support its members, the Chamber has expert committees, state committees and task force. PhD CCI brings together intense research, ideation and advocacy to support businesses. They support the members proactively through intense research and advocacies. Not only members, they also support the government in formulating prominent policies that support economic growth. With this, the Chamber brings out a unique opportunity to network nationally and internationally. PhD at its headquarters in Delhi and its regional offices at Chandigarh, Jaipur and Lucknow provides unique facilities for conferences and business networking events to its members. The prominent services of the PhD CCI are ideation and research on topical issues through expert committees and task forces, advisory services to business on corporate affairs, taxation, finance, capital markets, etc. Certification services for origin of goods for exporters and other documents, capacity development through trainings and workshops, interface services with central and state governments, corporate social responsibility through voluntary organization. So, an association with PhD CCI would add value to your business. PhD CCI offers memberships under the categories Patron, Star, Ordinary, Association and Professional. Benefits to Patron and Star members: get opportunities to be part of the Managing Committee, may get opportunity to be the Chair or Co-Chair of various committees, opportunity to be a delegation member to meet government and statutory bodies, get branding and publicity, to avail the facilities of the library and business lounge of the PhD Chamber. The Patron members and Star members will have their logos displayed on the PhD website and PhD Bulletin. Additionally, special discounts to members availing PhD CCI's infrastructure facilities. For more details, please visit our website www.phdcci.in. We welcome you to join PhD CCI, be a part of the golden story of more than a century, and be a part of the nation's growth. PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry symbolizes progress, harmony and development. For the last 116 years, PhD CCI has been serving the nation. PhD CCI reaches out to 150,000 companies with focus on the development of large, medium and small businesses. PhD CCI has co-opted national and international industry associations and organizations through over 151 global MOUs and more than 60 domestic MOUs. With access to governments and international forums, PhD CCI ensures that the voice of our members is heard by those who make decisions that ultimately affect their bottom line. The mission of the PhD CCI is to provide a proactive leadership role by providing quality services, to act as a catalyst for rapid economic development and prosperity through promotion of trade, industry and services, to strengthen technological advancement through effective industry-government research partnership, to emphasize productivity, improve work ethos, and encourage business ethics, to effectively project credibility and commitment of business to the society at large. To support its members, the Chamber has expert committees, state committees, and task force. PhD CCI brings together intense research, ideation, and advocacy to support businesses. They support the members proactively through intense research and advocacies. Not only members, they also support the government in formulating prominent policies that support economic growth. With this, the Chamber brings out a unique opportunity to network nationally and internationally. PhD at its headquarters in Delhi and its regional offices at Chandigarh, Jaipur, and Lucknow provides unique facilities for conferences and business networking events to its members. The prominent services of the PhD CCI are ideation and research on topical issues through expert committees and task forces, advisory services to business on corporate affairs, taxation, finance, capital markets, etc. Certification services for origin of goods for exporters and other documents, capacity development through trainings and workshops, interface services with central and state governments, corporate social responsibility through voluntary organization. So, an association with PhD CCI would add value to your business. PhD CCI offers memberships under the categories Patron, Star, Ordinary, Association and Professional. Benefits to Patron and Star members: get opportunities to be part of the Managing Committee, may get opportunity to be the chair or co-chair of various committees, opportunity to be a delegation member to meet government and statutory bodies, get branding and publicity, to avail the facilities of the library and business lounge of the PhD chamber. The patron members and star members will have their logos displayed on the PhD website and PhD bulletin. Additionally, special discounts to members availing PhD CCI's infrastructure facilities. For more details, please visit our website www.phdcci.in. We welcome you to join PhD CCI, be a part of the golden story of more than a century, and be a part of the nation's growth. PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry symbolizes progress, harmony and development. For the last 116 years, PhD CCI has been serving the nation. PhD CCI reaches out to 150,000 companies with focus on the development of large, medium and small businesses. PhD CCI has co-opted national and international industry associations and organizations through over 151 global MOUs and more than 60 domestic MOUs. With access to governments and international forums, PhD CCI ensures that the voice of our members is heard by those who make decisions that ultimately affect their bottom line. The mission of the PhD CCI is to provide a proactive leadership role by providing quality services, to act as a catalyst for rapid economic development and prosperity through promotion of trade, industry and services, to strengthen technological advancement through effective industry-government research partnership, to emphasize productivity, improve work ethos, and encourage business ethics, to effectively project credibility and commitment of business to the society at large. To support its members, the Chamber has expert committees, state committees, and task force. PhD CCI brings together intense research, ideation, and advocacy to support businesses. They support the members proactively through intense research and advocacies. Not only members, they also support the government in formulating prominent policies that support economic growth. With this, the Chamber brings out a unique opportunity to network nationally and internationally. PhD at its headquarters in Delhi and its regional offices at Chandigarh, Jaipur, and Lucknow provides unique facilities for conferences and business networking events to its members. The prominent services of the PhD CCI are ideation and research on topical issues through expert committees and task forces, advisory services to business on corporate affairs, taxation, finance, capital markets, etc. Certification services for origin of goods for exporters and other documents, capacity development through trainings and workshops, interface services with central and state governments, corporate social responsibility through voluntary organization. So, an association with PhD CCI would add value to your business. PhD CCI offers memberships under the categories Patron, Star, Ordinary, Association and Professional. Benefits to patron and star members: get opportunities to be part of the Managing Committee, may get opportunity to be the chair or co-chair of various committees, opportunity to be a delegation member to meet government and statutory bodies, get branding and publicity, to avail the facilities of the library and business lounge of the PhD chamber. The patron members and star members will have their logos displayed on the PhD website and PhD bulletin. Additionally, special discounts to members availing PhD CCI's infrastructure facilities. For more details, please visit our website www.phdcci.in. We welcome you to join PhD CCI, be a part of the golden story of more than a century, and be a part of the nation's growth. PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry symbolizes progress, harmony, and development. For the last 116 years, PhD CCI has been serving the nation. PhD CCI reaches out to 150,000 companies with focus on the development of large, medium, and small businesses. PhD CCI has co-opted national and international industry associations and organizations through over 151 global MOUs and more than 60 domestic MOUs. With access to governments and international forums, PhD CCI ensures that the voice of our members is heard by those who make decisions that ultimately affect their bottom line. The mission of the PhD CCI is to provide a proactive leadership role by providing quality services, to act as a catalyst for rapid economic development and prosperity through promotion of trade, industry, and services, to strengthen technological advancement through effective industry-government research partnership, to emphasize productivity, improve work ethos, and encourage business ethics, to effectively project credibility and commitment of business to the society at large. To support its members, the Chamber has expert committees, state committees, and task force. PhD CCI brings together intense research, ideation, and advocacy to support businesses. They support the members proactively through intense research and advocacies. Not only members, they also support the government in formulating prominent policies that support economic growth. With this, the Chamber brings out a unique opportunity to network nationally and internationally. PhD at its headquarters in Delhi and its regional offices at Chandigarh, Jaipur, and Lucknow provides unique facilities for conferences and business networking events to its members. The prominent services of the PhD CCI are ideation and research on topical issues through expert For the last 116 years, PhD CCI has been serving the nation. PhD CCI reaches out to 150,000 companies with focus on the development of large, medium, and small businesses. PhD CCI has co-opted national and international industry associations and organizations through over 151 global MOUs and more than 60 domestic MOUs. With access to governments and international forums, PhD CCI ensures that the voice of our members is heard by those who make decisions that ultimately affect their bottom line. The mission of the PhD CCI is to provide a proactive leadership role by providing quality services, to act as a catalyst for rapid economic development and prosperity through promotion of trade, industry, and services, to strengthen technological advancement through effective industry-government research partnership, to emphasize productivity, improve work ethos, and encourage business ethics, to effectively project credibility and commitment of business to the society at large. To support its members, the Chamber has expert committees, state committees, and task force. PhD CCI brings together intense research, ideation, and advocacy to support businesses. They support the members proactively through intense research and advocacies. Not only members, they also support the government in formulating prominent policies that support economic growth. With this, the Chamber brings out a unique opportunity to network nationally and internationally. PhD at its headquarters in Delhi and its regional offices at Chandigarh, Jaipur and Lucknow provides unique facilities for conferences and business networking events to its members. The prominent services of the PhD CCI are ideation and research on topical issues through expert committees and task forces, advisory services to business on corporate affairs, taxation, finance, capital markets, etc. Certification services for origin of goods for exporters and other documents, capacity development through trainings and workshops, interface services with central and state governments, corporate social responsibility through voluntary organization. So, an association with PhD CCI would add value to your business. PhD CCI offers memberships under the categories Patron, Star, Ordinary, Association and Professional. Benefits to Patron and Star members: get opportunities to be part of the Managing Committee, may get opportunity to be the Chair or Co-Chair of various committees, opportunity to be a delegation member to meet government and statutory bodies, get branding and publicity, to avail the facilities of the library and business lounge of the PhD Chamber. The Patron members and Star members will have their logos displayed on the PhD website and PhD Bulletin. Additionally, special discounts to members availing PhD CCI's infrastructure facilities. For more details, please visit our website www.phdcci.in. We welcome you to join PhD CCI, be a part of the golden story of more than a century, and be a part of the nation's growth. PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry symbolizes progress, harmony and development. For the last 116 years, PhD CCI has been serving the nation. PhD CCI reaches out to 150,000 companies with focus on the development of large, medium and small businesses. PhD CCI has co-opted national and international industry associations and organizations through over 151 global MOUs and more than 60 domestic MOUs. With access to governments and international forums, PhD CCI ensures that the voice of our members is heard by those who make decisions that ultimately affect their bottom line. The mission of the PhD CCI is to provide a proactive leadership role by providing quality services, to act as a catalyst for rapid economic development and prosperity through promotion of trade, industry and services, to strengthen technological advancement through effective industry-government research partnership, to emphasize productivity, improve work ethos and encourage business ethics, to effectively project credibility and commitment of business to the society at large. To support its members, the Chamber has expert committees, state committees and task force. PhD CCI brings together intense research, ideation and advocacy to support businesses. They support the members proactively through intense research and advocacies. Not only members, they also support the government in formulating prominent policies that support economic growth. With this, the Chamber brings out a unique opportunity to network nationally and internationally. PhD at its headquarters in Delhi and its regional offices at Chandigarh, Jaipur and Lucknow provides unique facilities for conferences and business networking events to its members. The prominent services of the PhD CCI are ideation and research on topical issues through expert committees and task forces, advisory services to business on corporate affairs, taxation, finance, capital markets, etc. Certification services for origin of goods for exporters and other documents, capacity development through trainings and workshops, interface services with central and state governments, corporate social responsibility through voluntary organization. So, an association with PhD CCI would add value to your business. PhD CCI offers memberships under the categories Patron, Star, Ordinary, Association and Professional. Benefits to Patron and Star members: get opportunities to be part of the Managing Committee, may get opportunity to be the Chair or Co-Chair of various committees, opportunity to be a delegation member to meet government and statutory bodies, get branding and publicity, to avail the facilities of the library and business lounge of the PhD chamber. The patron members and star members will have their logos displayed on the PhD website and PhD bulletin. Additionally, special discounts to members availing PhD CCI's infrastructure facilities. For more details, please visit our website www.phdcci.in. We welcome you to join PhD CCI, be a part of the golden story of more than a century, and be a part of the nation's growth. PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry symbolizes progress, harmony and development. For the last 116 years, PhD CCI has been serving the nation. PhD CCI reaches out to 150,000 companies with focus on the development of large, medium and small businesses. PhD CCI has co-opted national and international industry associations and organizations through over 151 global MOUs and more than 60 domestic MOUs. With access to governments and international forums, PhD CCI ensures that the voice of our members is heard by those who make decisions that ultimately affect their bottom line. The mission of the PhD CCI is to provide a proactive leadership role by providing quality services, to act as a catalyst for rapid economic development and prosperity through promotion of trade, industry and services, to strengthen technological advancement through effective industry-government research partnership, to emphasize productivity, improve work ethos, and encourage business ethics, to effectively project credibility and commitment of business to the society at large. To support its members, the Chamber has expert committees, state committees, and task force. PhD CCI brings together intense research, ideation, and advocacy to support businesses. They support the members proactively through intense research and advocacies. Not only members, they also support the government in formulating prominent policies that support economic growth. With this, the Chamber brings out a unique opportunity to network nationally and internationally. PhD at its headquarters in Delhi and its regional offices at Chandigarh, Jaipur, and Lucknow provides unique facilities for conferences and business networking events to its members. The prominent services of the PhD CCI are ideation and research on topical issues through expert committees and task forces, advisory services to business on corporate affairs, taxation, finance, capital markets, etc., certification services for origin of goods for exporters and other documents, capacity development through trainings and workshops, interface services with central and state governments, corporate social responsibility through voluntary organization. So, an association with PhD CCI would add value to your business. PhD CCI offers memberships under the categories Patron, Star, Ordinary, Association and Professional. Benefits to patron and star members: get opportunities to be part of the Managing Committee, may get opportunity to be the Chair or Co-Chair of various committees, opportunity to be a delegation member to meet government and statutory bodies, get branding and publicity, to avail the facilities of the library and business lounge of the PhD chamber. The patron members and star members will have their logos displayed on the PhD website and PhD bulletin. Additionally, special discounts to members availing PhD CCI's infrastructure facilities. For more details, please visit our website www.phdcci.in. We welcome you to join PhD CCI, be a part of the golden story of more than a century, and be a part of the nation's growth. PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry symbolizes progress, harmony, and development. For the last 116 years, PhD CCI has been serving the nation. PhD CCI reaches out to 150,000 companies with focus on the development of large, medium, and small businesses. PhD CCI has co-opted national and international industry associations and organizations through over 151 global MOUs and more than 60 domestic MOUs. With access to governments and international forums, PhD CCI ensures that the voice of our members is heard by those who make decisions that ultimately affect their bottom line. The mission of the PhD CCI is to provide a proactive leadership role by providing quality services, to act as a catalyst for rapid economic development and prosperity through promotion of trade, industry, and services, to strengthen technological advancement through effective industry-government research partnership, to emphasize productivity, improve work ethos, and encourage business ethics, to effectively project credibility and commitment of business to the society at large. To support its members, the Chamber has expert committees, state committees, and task force. PhD CCI brings together intense research, ideation, and advocacy to support businesses. They support the members proactively through intense research and advocacies. Not only members, they also support the government in formulating prominent policies that support economic growth. With this, the Chamber brings out a unique opportunity to network nationally and internationally. PhD at its headquarters in Delhi and its regional offices at Chandigarh, Jaipur, and Lucknow provides unique facilities for conferences and business networking events to its members. The prominent services of the PhD CCI are ideation and research on topical issues through expert committees and task forces, advisory services to business on corporate affairs, taxation, finance, capital markets, etc., certification services for origin of goods for exporters and other documents, capacity development through trainings and workshops, interface services with central and state governments, corporate social responsibility through voluntary organization. So, an association with PhD CCI would add value to your business. PhD CCI offers memberships under the categories Patron, Star, Ordinary, Association, and Professional. Benefits to patron and star members: get opportunities to be part of the managing committee, may get opportunity to be the chair or co-chair of various committees, opportunity to be a delegation member to meet government and statutory bodies, get branding and publicity, to avail the facilities of the library and business lounge of the PhD Chamber. The patron members and star members will have their logos displayed on the PhD website and PhD bulletin. Additionally, special discounts to members availing PhD CCI's infrastructure facilities. For more details, please visit our website www.phdcci.in. We welcome you to join PhD CCI, be a part of the golden story of more than a century, and be a part of the nation's growth. PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry symbolizes progress, harmony, and development. For the last 116 years, PhD CCI has been serving the nation. PhD CCI reaches out to 150,000 companies with focus on the development of large, medium and small businesses. PhD CCI has co-opted national and international industry associations and organizations through over 151 global MOUs and more than 60 domestic MOUs. With access to governments and international forums, PhD CCI ensures that the voice of our members is heard by those who make decisions that ultimately affect their bottom line. The mission of the PhD CCI is to provide a proactive leadership role by providing quality services, to act as a catalyst for rapid economic development and prosperity through promotion of trade, industry and services, to strengthen technological advancement through effective industry-government research partnership, to emphasize productivity, improve work ethos, and encourage business ethics, to effectively project credibility and commitment of business to the society at large. To support its members, the Chamber has expert committees, state committees, and task force. PhD CCI brings together intense research, ideation, and advocacy to support businesses. They support the members proactively through intense research and advocacies. Not only members, they also support the government in formulating prominent policies that support economic growth. With this, the Chamber brings out a unique opportunity to network nationally and internationally. PhD at its headquarters in Delhi and its regional offices at Chandigarh, Jaipur, and Lucknow provides unique facilities for conferences and business networking events to its members. The prominent services of the PhD CCI are ideation and research on topical issues through expert committees and task forces, advisory services to business on corporate affairs, taxation, finance, capital markets, etc., certification services for origin of goods for exporters and other documents, capacity development through trainings and workshops, interface services with central and state governments, corporate social responsibility through voluntary organization. So, an association with PhD CCI would add value to your business. PhD CCI offers memberships under the categories Patron, Star, Ordinary, Association and Professional. Benefits to patron and star members: get opportunities to be part of the managing committee, may get opportunity to be the chair or co-chair of various committees, opportunity to be a delegation member to meet government and statutory bodies, get branding and publicity, to avail the facilities of the library and business lounge of the PhD Chamber. The patron members and star members will have their logos displayed on the PhD website and PhD Bulletin. Additionally, special discounts to members availing PhD CCI's infrastructure facilities. For more details, please visit our website www.phdcci.in. We welcome you to join PhD CCI, be a part of the golden story of more than a century, and be a part of the nation's growth. PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry symbolizes progress, harmony and development. For the last 116 years, PhD CCI has been serving the nation. PhD CCI reaches out to 150,000 companies with focus on the development of large, medium and small businesses. PhD CCI has co-opted national and international industry associations and organizations through over 151 global MOUs and more than 60 domestic MOUs. With access to governments and international forums, PhD CCI ensures that the voice of our members is heard by those who make decisions that ultimately affect their bottom line. The mission of the PhD CCI is to provide a proactive leadership role by providing quality services, to act as a catalyst for rapid economic development and prosperity through promotion of trade, industry and services, to strengthen technological advancement through effective industry-government research partnership, to emphasize productivity, improve work ethos, and encourage business ethics, to effectively project credibility and commitment of business to the society at large. To support its members, the Chamber has expert committees, state committees, and task force. PhD CCI brings together intense research, ideation, and advocacy to support businesses. They support the members proactively through intense research and advocacies. Not only members, they also support the government in formulating prominent policies that support economic growth. With this, the Chamber brings out a unique opportunity to network nationally and internationally. PhD at its headquarters in Delhi and its regional offices at Chandigarh, Jaipur and Lucknow provides unique facilities for conferences and business networking events to its members. The prominent services of the PhD CCI are ideation and research on topical issues through expert committees and task forces, advisory services to business on corporate affairs, taxation, finance, capital markets, etc. Certification services for origin of goods for exporters and other documents, capacity development through trainings and workshops, interface services with central and state governments, corporate social responsibility through voluntary organization. So, an association with PhD CCI would add value to your business. PhD CCI offers memberships under the categories Patron, Star, Ordinary, Association, and Professional. Benefits to Patron and Star members: get opportunities to be part of the Managing Committee, may get opportunity to be the Chair or Co-Chair of various committees, opportunity to be a delegation member to meet government and statutory bodies, get branding and publicity, to avail the facilities of the library and business lounge of the PhD Chamber. The patron members and star members will have their logos displayed on the PhD website and PhD bulletin. Additionally, special discounts to members availing PhD CCI's infrastructure facilities. For more details, please visit our website www.phdcci.in. We welcome you to join PhD CCI, be a part of the golden story of more than a century, and be a part of the nation's growth. PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry symbolizes progress, harmony, and development. For the last 116 years, PhD CCI has been serving the nation. PhD CCI reaches out to 150,000 companies with focus on the development of large, medium, and small businesses. PhD CCI has co-opted national and international industry associations and organizations through over 151 global MOUs and more than 60 domestic MOUs. With access to governments and international forums,
Very good afternoon, all. Due to some unforeseen developments, we are starting late because rains were there and people were not able to join in time. So we are starting in the next 2-3 minutes, and we regret the late starting. So today's seminar on when and why arrest can be made under GST, taxpayers, tax department's perspective, their viewpoint about the when and why arrest can be made under GST. So they will provide facts and their thought process to address all those issues. And we welcome our chief guest, Shri D.P. Nagendra Kumarji, member GST, ST and Legal Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs, CBIC, Government of India. And we welcome our former president, respected Shri Mahesh Gupta ji on the dais, and our chair, Shri Bimal Jain ji, chair of the Indirect Taxes Committee. So I request all the dignitaries and participants to rise for the national anthem.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंग विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उज्ज्वल जलधि तरंग तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे.
Thank you. Now I would request to our chief guest, esteemed speakers and leadership for lamp lighting. Thank you, respected dignitaries. On behalf of PSD Chamber of Commerce and Industry, I welcome you all for seminar on when and why arrest can be made under GST, taxpayers, tax departments perspective. The concept of taxation is based on the foundation of welfare of the citizens, while the primary focus of indirect tax legislation is on revenue recovery and monetary penalties. Indirect tax authorities can also take actions, including arrest in disciplining those who misuse the provisions of such legislations. The measures relating to arrest have been introduced to aid in the investigation of GST-related crimes, prevent evidence tampering, and suspected offending from fleeing. As GST is a major reform during the modern history of India, and now the GST trajectory is becoming more and more prominent and simple. but not that much simple. We are making our efforts. Our Bimal Jain ji is providing so many awareness programs for the simplification of the taxation system so that ease of doing business becomes prominent at the ground level. So our effort is to provide real-time suggestions to the government for their policy action so that Indian economy, which is aiming to become a 5 trillion economy, becomes real economy to achieve this figure in the next few years. So with these words, I would like to invite our respected former President, Dr. Mahesh Gupta ji, for the welcome remarks.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my great honor to welcome Shri D.P. Nagendra Kumar ji, a member, GST, Legal, Central Board of Indirect Tax and Customs. It's a very important seminar today, and we are happy that he is here to issue clarifications and give advice on the important subject. We are in the midst of very near to completing the 5 years of GST introduction in the country. It's a law which has been long awaited by the industries and even by the government, and is now fulfilling 5 years of its operation. And it's a great opportunity that we will be able to discuss this important subject today. Well, this GST law, as when it was introduced, was called good and simple tax. And I must say it has lived to its reputation of being good and simple tax, because it has eased doing of business in the country. And especially it has benefited the MSME industries most of the time, because initially MSMEs could do business only in the state they were there. Today, the whole of India has been opened out to the MSME industries. Big industries can register into each state were doing earlier, even now they are doing it. But small industries were finding it very difficult. Number two, e-commerce. E-commerce business is an all India business. If GST would not have come, I don't think we would have seen a growth of the e-commerce industries the way it is being reflected. Today, you can order your groceries and you can order, let's say, any amount of money through e-commerce and it comes in. And I think thanks to the GST that this law has come in and people are able to benefit from this. So one country has been combined as one market with the GST law. It's a great benefit which has come into it. And the government revenue is steadily going up as we are seeing it today. Up to 1.40 lakh crores, I think, has been one of the peak which has been achieved. I don't know the exact numbers, but I think it has been going up on a regular basis. And it's a welcome sign. And especially the states which are consumer states are benefiting much more rather than the producing states. Earlier, the rule was a state which is industrialized used to get more revenue compared to the states which were utilizing it. I think all these benefits are a great benefit for the industry as well. And we as an industry body welcome introduction, and we welcome that it has lived to a very good reputation for the 5 years. So whenever any new law comes in, we know it's not black and white. There has to be a gray. Shade of gray has to be there. And similarly, we find shades of gray in the GST law, and we find difficulties. The issues are there, and it has been resolved over a period of time, slowly. But there may be certain issues which are yet not resolved. That's why we welcome the member to be here with us and to issue us some of the guidelines on the subject we are going to talk. But one thing which I like to highlight at this platform, that a lot of advanced rulings are coming in. And those advanced rulings are part of the simplification process and issued by the government. But these advanced rulings remain there itself. They does not become rules in any body. I would request should be explored if these advanced rulings can go to the GST Council and the rules are formulated based on these advanced rulings, then they'll become the laws. And then everybody would know whether to use that as a law or not. Because those doubts will remain, because what we industry needs is a stable business atmosphere. Wherever there is a doubt of the business atmosphere, you do not know what to do it. And then the implication would be known over a period of time of 4 or 5 years. By that time, liability will become too strong because interest will come in and you do not know how to handle that business. So we want an environment which is a stable environment, which is a clear-cut laws that benefits to us, sir. And this is the request which I will take. I'm not going to go to the individual difficulties which are being faced by this. There are professional people sitting out there on the dais. There are chairmen, and they know the business better than me as an industrialist, and they will take up the atmosphere. But on the subject of the subject, which is when and why arrest can be made under GST, I would only say that arrest is a very severe punishment. This punishment should be the last resort. And even if it is required that somebody has done a wrong things, I would say compounding is a better answer than arrest. You put a severe compounding on him and resist from such a severe punishment, which is the imprisonment of a businessman, which is doing a business. And I would say most important aspect which needs to be looked in is his intention. Now, if you find that this man's intention is bad and he has done all these wrong things because he wanted to do it, I think even if you do arrest, that's okay. But if you find the intention is a clerical mistake, if you find intention is to build up more trust, and there should be a greater trust between the income tax authorities and the taxpayer authority, that will bring in a better atmosphere and more revenue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for providing your very, very crisp viewpoint, which is very practical and a suggestion for the GST authorities. So we look forward to include this point in our representation to the government. And now, with these words, I would like to invite our chief guest, Shri DP Nagendra Kumarji, member GST, ST and Legal, Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs, CBIC, Government of India, to address the members of PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He belongs to 1985 batch of Indian Revenue Services, Custom and M Central Excise. He played an active role in drafting the model GST law as a member in the law drafting committee constituted by Government of India, in active coordination with the Empowered Committee of State Finance Ministers. He was a member of the Committee on Dual Control Exemptions Thresholds constituted by Empowered Committee of State Finance Ministers on GST. He was actively associated with training officers of the state and central government in GST laws. He was nominated by the GST Council as co-convener of the Committee on Services Provided and Received by Government. He has been awarded the prestigious Presidential Award of Certificate of Appreciation for Distinguished Record of Service on the occasion of Republic Day of 2009. Shri DP Nagendra Kumarji, please.
Respected dignitaries on the dais, dear participants, a very good afternoon to all of you. At the outset, I thank the PhD Chamber of Commerce for inviting me to be present amidst you for this workshop, the knowledge session on an important topic on the arrest and the related provisions under the GST Act. Well, the GST, as the previous speaker had mentioned, is completing 5 years of its journey. Rather, I would say it's a tumultuous journey ever since its introduction in 1st July 2017. I think looking back, the journey of GST, which commenced in the year 2006, culminating in implementation from 1st July and completing 5 years, I think what I would say, I think what yesterday's survey by Deloitte has mentioned, I think it has definitely enabled in achieving some of its key objectives like ease of doing business, improving efficiency and gains for all the stakeholders, be it government, the consumer, or the taxpayers themselves. The topic of today's afternoon, which you are deliberating upon, I'm glad that it has been taken up for a discussion in a professional forum like this. When we look at the tax laws, I think what we are looking at is basically, I think, voluntary compliance. most of the taxes today, be it on the direct and indirect taxes levied in India, are self-assessed taxes. Now, when we talk about self-assessment, I think a certain amount of trust is expected from the participating members. Now, in a self-assessment regime, we discourage intrusive tax administration because a self-assessment is based on the clear contours of the law and the procedures laid down and made clear to the parties concerned. We introduced the self-assessment in central excise way back in 1996. The service tax, which started in the year 1994, commenced with a self-assessment. The customs law, which was primarily driven by the administrative assessment, converted into a self-assessment from 2017. And GST from its very birth was a self-assessed tax. Now, looking at the basic, what do I say, from a tax administration point of view, we look at there are two key functions for any tax administration. One basically into compliance, and the other with regard to what we know about with regard to taxpayer services. Now, today's topic is basically with regard to the compliance. Now, when we look at the compliance, tax administration looks at the compliance pyramid from the point of view, right? The presumption and also the underlying principle is that majority of the taxpayers want to be on the right side of the law, want to comply with the laws. Now, our strategy towards that would be basically to facilitate. This covers close to almost about 97% of the taxes being collected. So a large base, predominantly willing to comply. So on the right side of law is what tax administration considers with the least governance model. Our job is to facilitate and provide guidance. The next layer in the compliance pyramid is with regard to the middle segment, which is falling within that 3%, who are willing to comply, but they require nudge and continuous monitoring, the fence sitters. We do address those concerns by scrutiny and audit mechanisms. I think combine these two instrumentalities which are available with any tax administration in the modern day context, largely addresses those concerns with regard to the non-compliance happening on account of lack of knowledge or there's a lack of proper monitoring model. The less than 1% of the top, the pyramid is what have decided not to comply. Now, our objective in the middle is to detect to deter, but in the top layer where they've decided not to comply, I think certainly we need to look at a more serious intervention in the form of enforcement in terms of investigation, search, seizure, arrest, prosecution, etc. Now, some of you may wonder as to why at all in an economic legislation, that too in tax legislation, why should we have a provision which leads to arrest? You may also like to ask me that as to why, if this provision is not there in the Income Tax Act or many of the VAT laws which have been succeeded by the GST, why should we have an arrest provision at all in the GST Act? Does it serve any purpose? Does it impinges the fundamental rights which has been guaranteed under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution with regard to the right to liberty and freedom? And how one ensures that these provisions are not misused? So I'll address these concerns one by one. When we look at the arrest provisions, we basically look into a couple of legislation which had these provisions in the pre-GST era. One, in Central Excise. The Central Excise and Salt Act had its origin in 1944. And in that act, we had the arrest provision for very specific offenses. Offenses such as clandestine removal and also aiding and abetting in doing the clandestine removal, which resulted in evasion of tax with certain serious implications in terms of the quantum of revenue sought to be evaded or the intent, the mens rea, the criminal intent to evade the payment of taxes is palpable or visible. In the Customs Act, though in the different context with regard to the smuggling or with regard to the actions relating to the notified goods, the arrest provisions were there in terms of Section 104 of the Customs Act. Now, Service tax, which came in 1994, did not have the arrest provision to start with. But over the period of 10 long years of its implementation, as it gained its coverage and spread, and the type of extension of evasion, what we have noticed in some sectors, I think there was a debate in the parliament with regard to whether the provisions of arrest should be introduced in the Finance Act 1994 in the year somewhere in the year 2010-11, if I remember correct. I think one of the factors at that time was talked about is with regard to whether we should have an arrest in the service tax law. Now, the parliament debated it for a very long time, because by the time many of the VAT laws were already in place in India at a subnational level taxation, none of the VAT laws had arrest provision as such. But the parliament in its own wisdom has decided that arrest provision should be there in the Finance Act insofar as service tax law is concerned. But the offenses were very, very clearly defined. That somebody has collected a certain quantum of tax and not remitted for a particular period. That means an amount which has been collected in the garb of tax but not remitted to the government and kept for a certain period of time was taken as a criteria to see that somebody could be arrested. But before arrest, what is essential to be noticed is that there are offenses for which we launch prosecution. This is a provision existing in central excise law. It exists in customs. It also exists in Finance Act, and the service tax is concerned. Now, some of those offenses are of a serious nature, could be non-bailable, which could be visited with an imprisonment for a period exceeding about 5 years. It could be anywhere between 2 years to 7 years is what the time in which some of those offenses were to be visited with the penalty. And mind you, in all these things, the prosecution happens in a trial court with a criminal jurisprudence with strict adherence to the principles of IPC and CRPC. Now, when we had in the service tax law these arrest provisions, I think Bimal would be around with me, that we had a number of cases in this country where people would collect the service tax but wouldn't remit it to the government, running into several crores. The arrest provisions brought in the statute brought in certain amount of discipline and reduced such type of malpractices. But those provisions, when we implemented and acted upon, also were subject to a matter of scrutiny before various judicial forums. Now, that was the narration before the GST came into. In the GST law, when we wanted to introduce this provision, there were again serious apprehensions whether such a provision is required or not. I still remember when we drafted the model GST law, some of the states had raised their serious concern that GST is a progressive legislation. Should we have an arrest provision in this statute itself? Now, can this not be met with the other means by which it could be addressed in terms of imposing penalties? And as my previous speaker spoke, could we not have a compounding provisions which are there internationally? Should we have an arrest provision at all? Now, our limited experience with regard to administering the services and also the central excise and also from the point of view of customs gave us a clear indication that there has to be a deterrent provisions in economic legislations if you have to achieve the desired level of compliance, at least in certain segments where the evasion is going to be a major challenge in terms of bringing credibility in the entire compliance paradigm. The states had some apprehensions, as I told you, particularly Maharashtra and other states had. But then we had to deliberate upon and discuss about what could be the safety mechanisms by which such a provision is not put to misuse or abused. If we can ensure those contours, then probably I think such provisions could bring in a desired result. Then came the provisions got introduced. And let me tell you that these are all completely deliberated in the GST Council, where every state representative had gone class by reading. And subject to their approval only, the recommendations formed part of the model GST law, which was further introduced in the parliament for implementation part of it. So insofar as the legislative approval for bringing these provisions into the legislation is concerned, let us be very clear. It is the parliamentary wisdom that prevailed in saying that the arrest provision should be there in a tax law like GST. Now, what is basically which in GST law we have provided for? We have made it very clear that offenses punishable under section 132. There are specific provisions under 132A to D, and also with regard to the offenses which has got a tax evasion having a monetary limit of a minimum of 5 crores. What we have said would be what could be a provision where arrest could be exercised. Just merely because the power to arrest exists in the law in terms of section 69 doesn't mean that it is mandatory that we have to exercise the power in every situation of tax evasion investigation. There are very clear-cut guidelines which internally is there, whether it was there in the service tax regime, be it also in the excise regime, that why do we make an arrest? And how do this arrest differ from the criminal law in terms of the criminal justice system? In GST law, the arrest is not a provision by which we consider this as a punishment. An arrest doesn't precede a determination of the tax or the assessment of the liability. That is why the serious challenge had been there to the arrest provisions before the court of law in the past, and some of them are still there before the court of law. That should the power of arrest be exercised when not even the tax liability has been determined, how fair is it and how correct it is. So this is a very, very important thing which we have to take note of. An arrest is normally made in certain specified circumstances where this requirement has to be fulfilled. This is where I think all of us need to be very, very clear about it. One, it can't be there in a very mechanical manner. The decision to arrest a person for an offense which is said to have been committed, which is said to be established in terms of an adjudication proceedings or a trial proceedings in a court of law. As I told you, it's not a sort of as a punishment as such, but it is for a certain purpose. One, it has to have a tax evasion in those specific offenses which are of a very serious nature, which is discussed in section 132A to D, like issuing of invoice without supply of goods or supplying goods without invoice or probably taking a fraudulent input as credit refund, etc., etc. Now, the monetary limit of 5 crore would mean that assuming that our average tax incidence is about 18%, the amount of money involved in a transaction where there is no record keeping or for that matter violation, it would be 5 times of that. So 25 crores is the turnover for which a person could be arraigned in to be arrested. This is first safety mechanism that we have put in a monetary limit of tax amounts ought to have been evaded or the ITC misused, etc. Now that could be 2.5 crore of the CGST and 2.5 crore of the SGST and the 5 crore of the IGST, what we are looking at that. The second important safety mechanism what we have put in is that a person who is likely to be influencing or tampering with the witness or evidence. In fact, in an economic law, let me be very, very clear. Unlike the criminal law, the mens rea is something which is a state of mind, it cannot be easily established. So therefore, if a person who is likely to tamper with an evidence or influence in a witness, which could be prejudicial to an investigation, which results in a tax evasion investigation, that's one of the grounds for which an arrest could be made. Third, since GST officers are not police officers, a statement given by a person is an admissible evidence in a court of law. We don't have a police power insofar as the arrest is concerned, though it's a very coercive measure. A GST officer is not a police officer. He doesn't take cognizance of an offense by setting in law into motion by filing a charge sheet, an FIR, or a magisterial cause of action. But the first safeguard I said was the monetary limit. The second was that we have specified circumstances which alone an arrest could be made where he could tamper with an evidence or is not cooperating with the investigation, etc. But more importantly, the safety valve what we have built in the law. The decision to arrest a person will have to be exercised by an officer of the rank of commissioner, who is the principal commissioner of the commissioner. An arrest can be executed by an inspector or superintendent, but the decision to arrest a person will have to be on the basis of a reason to believe in the mind of the commissioner, the principal commissioner. A reason to believe has to be well understood in this context. Now, many times when we arrest a person, the person who is arrested is found to have been involved or said to have been committed a serious offense, which is punishable under Section 132. Let us talk about a fake invoice situation. Now, you're all aware in the country now, in the last 5 years, to be very specific, from October 2020, we started the fake invoice drive. Till now, from October 2020 to now, we are in June 2022, it's less than 2 years. Close to almost about 70,000 crores of fake invoice transactions have been detected by the tax administrations. I'm talking about the detection. At any given point of time, with best of the resources and the availability of the infrastructure, we could at best touch about not more than about 10 to 15% of that transactions. If 70,000 crores is the tax amount involved, multiply again by the same average incidence of the tax of 5 times, close to about 4 lakh crore of the transaction which is found to be fake. It could be for various reasons. It could be for taking the bank loan limit extension. It could be for the purpose of basically a circular transaction to offset that fake credit for output tax liability, or for that matter, whatever reasons. But if this is the transaction level of misuse, and close to this less than 2 years detection of 70,000 crores, we have done 600 arrests, more than that. Now, 600 arrests in a span of less than 2 years, huge volume of misuse of the input tax credit. Now, what does it indicate? It indicates, in spite of these stringent provisions being brought in law, the compliance still requires a lot more effort. Now, you may ask me a question, sir, you do all the investigation, issue a show cause notice, adjudicate, launch a prosecution, and bring in the deterrence. Why do we bring in a draconian provision like arrest to be decided much before the offense is established? Now, it may sound very, very logical and rational from a point of view that how can you fasten a liability? Because the Indian criminal justice system presumes innocence until is proved guilt. The tax provisions are no exception to this. But when we look back in a trust-based system like GST, where the entire ITC is operated on a self-regulated mode, today, if you look at, if I collect around about 1,40,000 crores or 1,50,000 crores per month as my GST cash revenue, that just represents around about 21% of the total tax what I'm collecting. That means for every 1 rupee what I collect as tax, close to almost about 79 to 80 paise comes through the tax payment through the credit, and what gets paid to the government in cash is less than 20% or 21%. So at any given point of time in a month, close to 6 lakh crore of tax is adjusted towards the ITC by the taxpayers who are filing around about 85 lakh returns, etc. Now, on this, absolutely the department has no intervention. When you determine the tax entitlement in terms of ITC, in terms of what you adjust and you file the 3B return, it's absolutely self-driven. There is no administrative assessment, unlike VAT. Now, when we look at the situation in which we are in an indirect tax, for every person who complies with the law, if a competitor doesn't comply with the law, it is not possible for him to be in the same level playing field. He can't even survive in the market, leave alone that as a commercial reason for what we need compliance at every level. More importantly for us, what is required is that in order to enforce the self-policing model and also to promote voluntary compliance and also encourage the ethical behavior, the deviant behavior will have to be dealt with firmly, strongly, and in a timely manner. The arrest provision, having said this, that an arrest precedes, of course, the prosecution. But what we are looking at internally, some of the concerns recently raised, we are aware of that, and some of you are participating may be aware of that. In order to prevent an abuse or a misuse of these stringent provisions, I think we have internally laid down a standard that one, an officer who is taking a decision for ordering arrest of a person will have to record the reasons in the file. And that is subject to scrutiny by the court of law. And the reason to believe will have to be there. And in my limited experience of the 2 years, till date, no court has said the arrest was in excess of the excessiveness of the power exercised by the officer. We normally don't arrest a person unless there is a prima facie evidence exists that the person is said to have indulged in a massive fraudulent activity. Now, people may say that, you see, an ITC is what? It's an accounting entry for you. But what happens, suppose, if the same accounting entry taken in a fraudulent manner is offset against the cash liability otherwise would have required to be paid? So again, the question could be asked, sir, it is only taken but not utilized. How did you get affected on that? But do I have a control on the usage of the electronic credit ledger? When the credit auto flows from a supplier side to the recipient's credit ledger, it is absolutely self-regulated. The government has no role. I have no power to block the ITC credit. I have a power to attach the bank account, but I have no power to attach the electronic credit ledger. That's the integrity we have maintained. The cash ledger and the credit ledger is absolutely the taxpayer's privilege. No tax officer in this department has been given the power to attach an electronic credit ledger or automatically debit the credit ledger or the cash ledger on its own. Why have we maintained that? While I have retained the power to enforce in terms of attachments, both movable and immovable, but we haven't given the power to our officers to attach an electronic credit ledger or the cash ledger. That is where the system believes that a taxpayer who is on the right side of the law should have the freedom to decide as to what credit you should earn and what credit you should be using it for payment of tax. So coming back to the justification part of it, that arrest provisions are required insofar as bringing deterrence for those who have deliberately decided not to comply with the law, but it comes with a lot of safeties. We are working on an SOP, not that we didn't have an SOP in the excise regime or in the service tax regime. It doesn't come to you in the public domain because it's an internal document. But we do have a standard SOP, which is vetted, which is validated by the CNTG and others. Now, in the GST regime, we are coming with an SOP. Some of the courts have raised the concern as to how do you ensure that the proper application of mind is there before an ordering of an arrest for a person. Now, one important thing we would look upon before arresting a person is involvement. The involvement must bring in the criminal intent or the fraudulent conduct of the person, which a person with the common sense would be in a position to come to that conclusion without much of application of mind. That's one thing which we are looking at. Two, there are bailable and non-bailable offenses. In a bailable case, the deputy commissioner who is required to give a bail as a matter of right to the person who has been arrested, he has certain rights and he has the bail bond and what is the bail amount to be given. These are all being laid out very clearly in the internal instructions. Normally, an officer who is arresting a person for a bailable offense, which is below than 2 crores and an offense punishable with less than 2 years punishment, etc. We don't exercise the power normally in the jurisdiction, though the powers are there in the law. Where we normally exercise the power is with regard to any evasion which is more than 5 crore. And that 5 crore, in some cases, we have come across as high as 1,800 crores of fraudulent credit taken by some of those whimsical characters in this country. So, if a person could just create a fake ITC of around about hundreds of crores, and some of the times you should wonder, because some of the cases which we investigate, it's humanly not possible to deal with such of those things with normal provisions of law. We had a case where we are all aware of the identity theft. 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 people. There are people who have been running the business of identity theft as an industry. Some places where we have come across a search around about 600, 700 Aadhaar cards. And Aadhaar cards are not fake cards. They're genuine Aadhaar cards. PAN card. Open a bank account. Create a fake rental agreement copy. We have seen this time and again. And do you all agree with me that such people deserve to be anywhere leniently treated? And if these provisions were not to be there, how do we deal with that unscrupulous part of the society? So I'm not here to justify what I'm saying in that sense that this is the only way to do things. But what I'm saying is this law has had its historical past, and we are looking at arrest provisions in the GST law only deal with those things. This is not to supplement what we are otherwise normal adjudication limits in terms. Certainly, I think our intention is very clear insofar as interpretational matters are concerned, or mostly of a commercial disputes of nature concerned. Arrest and prosecution is not the way forward. We would look upon the penalties, we would look at the departmental adjudication, we would look upon some set of things. And this is again, when I'm saying about this, what we are looking at in the GST law, there are provisions where it says that a person can voluntarily come forward and accept his liability and pay. The only waiver is possible is interest, sorry, penalty, not the interest part of it. Graded penalty. And thereafterwards, we are looking at somebody who has decided not to comply with, and certainly this type of fraudulent activities, we look at that. So I'm glad a seminar of this on the topic is being organized by your professional body. Arrest provisions are, there are a number of decisions available. The jurisprudence on this is very much relevant for all of us to deliberate upon that. We had some of the landmark cases in the service tax regime. We do also have some challenges that come. And currently the matter with regard to the arrest provisions is pending before a 3-member judgment of the Supreme Court. Again, some of the high courts have held the arrest provisions valid. Some of the high courts have said arrest provisions would require to be revisited. We are in appeal in a couple of matters, and we do have the matter would be decided one day by the Honorable Supreme Court, laying down a proposition as to what should be the procedure and process. But we would, from a tax administration point of view, would consider that with an adequate safeguards against a possible misuse, I think the arrest provisions have achieved its objective in creating a deterrence. I would rather go one step further to say, notwithstanding these deterrent arrest provisions, we still have a lot more to deal with in terms of the fake invoices in the country. Not a single day passes be it in the central and tax administration that we are not detecting a fake invoice case every day. So we would look upon this as a deterrent provision, but certainly the responsibility will be on us to ensure that arrest provisions are used sparingly and that in the more deserving cases where a criminal intent or a fraudulent motive is visible and palpable, not on a matter where interpretation or a matter in which probably there is 2 point of views possible, 1 point of view has been taken. Not a single classification case or an undervaluation case we have come across an arrest in this country in the post-GST. It is 99.9% is with regard to fake credit and fake invoice. When you are deliberating on this topic, please keep that perspective in mind. While we have to deliberate on this from the point of view that fundamental rights guaranteed under the Constitution provide for personal liberty and freedom. So we need to be conscious of that fundamental entitlements given by the Constitution, but the tax law which provides for this provision will have to be looked into from the point of view on which I deliberated upon some of the perspective. Thank you once again. I am available for any interventions during the presentation or anything. I would be available for about an hour or so. Let me see. I think I will also be eagerly looking for your presentation on the provision. So from a point of view of an administrator. But let me reassure all of you are present here that these provisions do come to a very critical review at the highest level of the government insofar as excess of powers are concerned. We have built in a lot of safety mechanisms. One, within 24 hours of the arrest, a person will have to be produced before a magistrate. And thereafter, it is the magistrate who takes a decision whether to continue with an arrest or to give a bail. 2, we take into account the Honorable Supreme Court directions in D.K. Basu's case, and we strictly follow that. 3, in all these cases where arrests have been made, our effort is to complete the investigation within 60 days and file a charge sheet similar to a criminal case. We do have internal guidelines that an adjudication proceedings need not be an impediment in not filing a charge sheet if prima facie evidence exists and prosecutable evidence exists for us to lodge the charge sheet. And our effort is towards that direction. And finally, I think there will be internally a robust SOP in place sooner or later. We do follow the SOPs, what is there in excise and service tax, but we are bringing out an SOP for the purpose of GST as well to ensure that there is zero tolerance for any misuse. With these things, I will conclude and I look forward to your deliberations on the subject. Thank you once again.
Thank you, sir, for valuable insights to all the participants who is in physical as well as 400 participants in virtually. Now I request to our Chair of the Indirect Tax Committee of the PhD Chamber of Commerce, Shri Bimal Jainji, to give in his keynote presentation to all the participants.
You can see from the time that will come. I would like to see him live. No, sir, you can sit here. You can see, I will be looking at you. At the outset, let me thank Sri D.P. Nagin Kumarji, member GST CBIC, who has agreed for this today's seminar cum webinar on very important topic, arrest, when arrest can be made under GST and why arrest under GST. We got our former president, Dr. Mahesh Gupta ji, learned speaker on dais, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening to all of you. Topic is very hot and very interesting. Now here I would like to invite certain attention of member GST. Sir, I've got certain life case study. I'm not going to tell you something out of the box, be a life case study. We are not justifying tax evader. We are not on the side of tax evader. They must be punished. They must be punished with stringent action. Whatever required to be done should be taken against them. But in the process, what is happening, balancing act is somewhat missing somewhere. I'm not saying fully, somewhere missing. And that is the only grievance of trade, industry, and commerce. Let me start with one life case study, sir. They're the customer, let's say they are all my customer clients sitting, and I'm the supplier to them. I have supplied the goods to them, what they normally do in their normal trade, and you can always say I'm right or wrong, so that we can be interactive together. What they are looking into, they are having tax invoice copy with them. They are seeing whether their transaction is coming in GSTR 2A or 2B or not. It means supplier has filed GSTR 1, so it's getting auto-populated, and recipient 2A and 2B. They are also receiving goods because they are having eBay bill also. They have got a certain photograph of truck is being received at their godown or factory gate. Their payment is happening through bank route. There's no cash transaction. And being recipient, they are filing a regular GST return. They are satisfying all 4 conditions of section 16, subsection 2. What problem is coming out and what is the cases going on in the trade? It's the first case. Department coming at the recipient and saying your credit is ineligible credit. And this poor fellow is saying, why my credit is ineligible? I got the tax invoice, it is coming in 2A. Even I can see that my supplier has also filed GSTR 3B, means he has paid the tax amount also.
And bank transaction is happening, they are having LR copy, they are regularly filing GST return, then what they are being told that you have purchased from Bimal Jain B, but this B has procured goods from A, and A has only filed GSTR1 and he has not paid the taxes. So he has not paid the taxes, department is right, because they have not collected the tax. And that's the reason this credit is being termed as ineligible credit. But irony is, this recipient cannot see any transaction beyond B. On GST common portal, they can see at most whether B is filing GSTR1 or not, whether B is really filing GSTR3B or not. If B has procured from A and A has not paid the taxes, C can't see. There is no window available. No window available. Of course, you are right that since A has not paid the taxes in supply chain, hence this is becoming ineligible credit. But genuine grievance at the end of the C also. Now he's looking for the answer. He's saying, I'm honest taxpayer. I have done all due diligence when I purchased from B, but beyond B, I can't see. And there's a legal maxim, which is settled by Honorable Supreme Court, lex non cogit ad impossibilia. You cannot compel a person to do something impossible. And second irony is, these cases started coming in only when department got GSTR 2A. GSTR 2A came sometime beginning of 2019. And sir, today you will agree with me, why this fake invoice and fake credit issue? And who were accountable and responsible? With candid and humble submission to you, if I look at the GST law, ITC matching and mismatching as per section 37, 38, 39, then 42, 43, then 43A came into the picture, got omitted. What was envisaged? Supplier going to file GSTR1, which is going to be auto-populated for the recipient in GSTR2A. They will add, modify, and delete. Add means if some transaction the supplier has not uploaded, they will add. They will modify if I have done any mistake, supplier has done any mistake, or they will delete the transaction if it is not pertaining to them while filing GSTR2. And once they do add, modify, and delete, that gets auto-populated in GSTR1A for the supplier, either to accept or reject. And then GSTR3 to be filed. But we all know GSTR2A was not available until beginning of 2019. The problem is, this recipient was even not knowing that whether supplier is paying the taxes or not. I'm picking up issue of section 16, subsection 2, clause C, which Dr. Mahesh Gupta was raising before you. Being recipient, he has paid the amount to the supplier. Supplier has not paid the taxes to the government exchequer. Now, how this recipient, unless 2A was available, and this 2A was not available from July 17 to January 2019. So what is the onus on the recipient? Now this supplier is running away. He's non-existent. And I'm giving another example to this. And these are all live case study. I can produce all the document before you. I'm only looking for the balancing act. Arrest provision, do we require? Why arrest provision? There are certain tax evaders. They have done tremendous kind of tax evasion that is not good for the nation. And we are not here advocating them. We should not. And we are not advocating them. What is our humble submission and request to you, sir? When we are picking up arrest provision, we have to see the balancing part. Any inspection, investigation, and search comes up. Sir, I'm telling you ground level reality. I may be little, I'm cautious about it, that my statement should not go very stringent. Whenever they come up for any search and seizure, the immediate threatening is you pay the amount, otherwise I will arrest you. Whereas arrest is going to be used as an exception. You rightly said in your welcome remarks. You said arrest should be used carefully. But what is their threatening? Unless you pay the amount and midnight 12, they get the money deposited. And only on the threat of arrest. you have issued, and I must compliment Instruction 1 dated 25th of May. This is 2022 got issued, wherein it is being stated, no deposit. You should not deposit any money unless you agree for it. That is a good instruction you have issued. But how many of the, I can tell you that live case study, sometimes you have to go as a normal person. You should not be coming as a member GST, go as a normal person and see the kind of, search and seizure is happening at the ground level. I'm honest to that. Maybe these many members are sitting here, they can vouch for it if I'm wrong anywhere. What we are looking for, if any search and inspection is happening, and the provision under section 67 subsection 1 given wide power, is start with where a proper officer not below the rank of joint commissioner having reason to believe a taxable person has suppressed any taxable supply of goods or services, or stocking goods, or excess claiming ITC. But one condition is very wide open, nothing is required then. Any contravention of CGST Act or rules made thereunder, then why we require separate provision? The one line will serve the purpose. But only problem which we are finding at the trade level or professional level, there has to be some balancing act. When I'm saying section 16, subsection 2, clause C, recipient has paid the amount to the supplier. Supplier did not deposit. Now, we have seen certain cases, no action is being taken against the defaulting supplier, but demand is being asked to the recipient to reverse credit along with interest and penalty. And being a large company, MNC, foreign MNC, we are giving some message to them. This country is supposed to be each for business. We are trying to improve our WTO ranking also. I'm just, highlighting those points. You picked up one example of classification and valuation. Rightly picked up, and you said 99% arrests are happening for ineligible credit. I can give you one example for classification and valuation. For classification, there are always interpretation issue. And the live case study, which I can tell you, sir, with a ballpoint pen falling under tariff heading 9608, under goods rate notification, chargeable at the 12% rate. Now, the parts and components which is used for manufacturing a ballpoint pen is going to fall under 9608, 12%, or residue category, 18%. And keeping this dispute in mind, one advance ruling came from West Bengal. And Dr. Mahesh Gupta picked up this issue because he's from industry side. Advance ruling are so contrary. One state is giving some kind of ruling, other state is giving other kind of ruling, and national level of advance ruling we have not formed as yet. So what happened in that case, sir? Department dispute was these parts and components going to fall under residue category, and ballpoint pen would fall under 12% category. I have given my representation. I gone and met with the officer and said, sir, there's explanation Roman 3 and Roman 4 under goods rate notification, which clearly saying any subheading, heading, tariff heading, section note, chapter note, general rule of interpretation, they will follow first schedule as per Custom Tariff Act, unless otherwise contrary provided. So if I go back to Custom Tariff Act 9608, they are including parts under the tariff heading. And these parts are specifically meant for manufacturing of ballpoint pen only. So it should fall under 9608. And there's a circular by CBIC 113 dated 11th of October 2019 pertaining to medical devices. They have said any parts and component which is specifically used for this medical devices would fall under the tariff heading of medical devices only. Still, they are not ready to accept this argument, and they have gone for the search. And during the search, they have created, I'm only saying it is not ease of business. In simple language, not ease of business, and saying that you're evading tax by wrong classification and you have to pay 18%. Now, my only submission is, if interpretation issue, you rightly picked up on interpretation, we can have two difference of opinion. And then from 1st of October 2021, this rate is increased to 18%, that the ballpoint pen that particular item got omitted and included into 18% rate. But for the past period, there has to be clarity. And this representation has gone, but we sometimes don't get the answer of representation. Circular is there, which I'm quoting 113 for medical devices, could have been followed, but still. Now, I'm touching base on multiple proceedings also. Why these are for arrest, sir? Because so they have not arrested. They have not arrested. But what happened? They only create a pressure of threatening and threatening of arrest and then get money deposited under protest. Definitely, of course, but only problem is that how many cases I will, though you are ready and willing, and I must compliment, let me say to the all trade members, let me compliment. I have seen during my, I'm also doing professional, services for so many years. I also interact with many officers. He, Mr. Nagen Kumar, I must say and compliment, he's one of the officer dynamic, energetic, and proactive. He picked up the things by suo moto. Can you imagine? I'm just putting something on my Twitter. He's picking up and saying what is wrong there and what need to be corrected. And this deserves big appreciation and compliment from all of us together. We must do that. And that is what we have to walk the talk. We have to come together and we have to reduce the differences. Today's seminar on arrest is not to pinpoint the mistakes. Today's seminar on arrest is just to come forward and understand each other. We understand why department has to have this arrest provision. When you talk about this much of value and volume, we have to take action against them. If tax is not being collected, then where from credit will flow? But at the same time, there are other grievances. Now I'm picking up multiple proceedings. One of my clients first searched by anti-evasion, Central, then searched by DGGI from Central, then coming state SIB. The first problem in multiple proceedings is first, what is the same subject matter which is being referred under section 6, subsection 2, clause B of CGST Act? When they come with the INS 01, they only talk about ineligible credit. Whether this ineligible credit as a whole, credit with pertaining to a specific vendor, they are not saying anything to me when they are coming. So they are getting some money deposited, maybe sometime under protest, may not be sometime under protest. Then DGGI coming in again, they are saying, no, we have come for the 4 specific vendor. Then the earlier authority who came and did all investigation pertaining to ineligible credit, was it not pertaining to 4 specific vendor? So again, they are picking up and saying, no, this credit is not available to you. Second point. Then third, SIB comes and they start again saying ineligible credit. And they also get some money deposited. So what impression we are leaving before the trade? And we have communicated to the officer, sir, we are already under investigation with DGGI. Second irony, sir, when investigation is being done multiple, my e-credit ledger get blocked. With non-regional order, with no opportunity of being heard. It is violation of principle of natural justice. So you are right in saying so that we have to take strict action against the tax evader, but it is not right somewhat when we look at these kind of features which is going on in the trade. And we have to find out some solution to it. I can produce my whole documentation to you. When I'm saying something, I can't say that it is bookcase I'm talking about. I can produce each and every document. And this is not the one case. I'm sure they may be having a number of cases, related cases. Sometimes courage to say that is difficult. And with your permission, I have brought so much of courage today to say all this thing. Sorry to say anything. If anything goes on, kindly allow me. Bimal has expressed his honest thought and opinion today. So this multiple proceedings again creating another. We got other learned speaker. I will not speak much today, but I only touch best 2-3 more points. Provisional attachment, section 83. Look at the way changes are being done. Earlier 83 was only for 62 base judgment, 63 that is assessment of unregistered person, 64 scrutiny assessment, 67, 73 and 74. Provision got changed from 1st January 2022. And now they're saying, and they've changed. Earlier it was during pendency. Now the provision changed after initiation, and that to chapter 12, chapter 14, and chapter 15, such a wide power given. And what is being written? Commissioner is of the opinion. Is of the opinion. Now, provisional attachment cannot go like all the provisions, section 69, arrest provision. Commissioner has reason to believe. If a person has committed specified offense, for specified offense under section 132, subsection 1, and punishable in terms of clause Roman 1 and Roman 2 of 132, that is being referred, and then he may authorize. Now, question comes, what is reason to believe? Can it be suspicion? Can it be apprehension? There has to be established fact and documentation. Now, we can't see anything what is being recorded in the file. We can't see. But sometime when we get such kind of search and inspection where we are having bona fide, we are bona fide and honest, we can produce, but we have to ultimately pay the taxes. Under protest, my money gets choked, working capital gets choked. And this is not helping us ease of business. Even 132, which got amended from 1st January 2021, earlier it was whoever has committed. This was okay. Now, causes to commit and retaining benefit. Who is falling into causes to commit and retaining benefit? Now, causes to commit and retaining benefit is a big parameter. I can give you 2-3 examples because recently I've seen many things are happening. Tax professionals are coming forward. They are making their representation before you. Even I'm today telling you, a tax professional only filing GST return. Only filing GST return. And he's being paid monthly fees. Now, this taxpayer may have taken ineligible credit because of L1 or L2 vendor. Because of L1 or L2 vendor. What this tax professional is seeing, whether two-way credit is coming or not, freebie is paid or not, beyond that, he can't also see. This tax professional can't see that. Filing the GST return, can he be put in a trap of causes to commit and retaining benefit? What is the meaning of compensating benefit we are talking about? He's only getting paid 5,000, 10,000 for filing GST return. So maybe these are the parameters we have to look into. Now, giving one certificate, of course, on certain forged information, I can't issue any certificate. No way I can do that. It is my accountability and responsibility. But we have to really understand in what circumstances these are being done. Like you are saying from the government side, yes, Bimal, we need to have these provisions, and I'm with you. I'm honestly with you, because these small, gray hair tax evader has created problem for the honest taxpayer. These provisions are being envisaged just to check them, but it is ultimately going against honest taxpayer. So things are really balancing act need to be required. That is the only humble submission. We are running late today. I was having some other example as well, but will not go further. Allow other speaker to say some their words, and then maybe at the last, we can have open house and you can take some questions from the participant. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I would request to Sri Sudipta Bhattacharya ji to give his presentation on constitutional validity of arrest provisions. He is a partner in the indirect tax practice group of Khaitan and Company with 15 years of experience in indirect tax advisory, including GST, custom, international trade laws, pre-GST indirect taxes, state excise laws affecting alcoholic beverage industry, as well as building, labor cess, tax controversy, management and allied aspects of the contract documentation, negotiation and disputes. So, sir, please start your presentation. Give a presentation.
Great. Thank you. A very good afternoon to all of you. I had the chance to meet Nagendra sir the day before that instruction came out, and I had the privilege of, discussing many of those things. And I remember the next morning I see this instruction and I was like, my God, that was fast. So I'm going to talk about constitutional validity of arrests. And of course, after, we have heard fairly detailed in terms of inputs, in terms of why the arrest provisions had come in, and the other side, the industry side from Bimalji. what is the context in which we need to understand, we need to discuss constitutional validity of arrest? When GST came in, and one of the opposition politicians used the word as a criticism, Gabbar Singh tax. Now we don't need to take it at face value. It is political rhetoric and clearly, a hyperbole. What we need to understand, where is this anguish coming from? See, we all know there is an article in the Indian Constitution, Article 265, which says that no tax shall be levied or collected without the authority of law. Levied or collected. So without authority of law, it can neither be levied nor be collected. When tax is being collected under a threat of arrest, under the dangling sword of arrest, is it authority of law? Clearly not. And which is where I think at some point the scale starts tilting towards that particular rhetoric, that it becomes extortionate. I mean, sir, you mentioned 600 arrests. I mean, I also had a similar number in mind, and undoubtedly, given the scale of fraudulent activities that are happening, this is probably not that high a number. I think the problem arises because of repeated invocation of the threat of arrest, and we don't have there is no doubt, I don't think there is any demand from the industry today of decriminalization under GST. I don't think anyone is even talking about that. We understand the seriousness. But given the fact, I mean, some of the examples that Bimalji said, I mean, we use this catchphrase, suppliers sin and recipients repent. I can, definitely be held responsible for my L1 supplier. And I mean, Vimalji gave 4 examples. I can add probably 4 more. And I'm sure if we sort of go around the, auditorium, there will be many more examples where for L2, even L3, I have had a major e-commerce operator, and I don't want to take the name, but their senior management was threatened for a L3 supplier. And for 4 months, we had a battle across various courts to get them pre-arrest protection because at the drop of a hat, arrest was being threatened. And so the officer there, because he realized that it is easier to collect money from this large deep pocket e-commerce operator versus going after someone in the by lanes of Gurgaon to catch that person. So the point I'm making, sir, is I think, I mean, and we all eagerly look forward to that SOP that you mentioned. I think somewhere, sir, the balancing act has to happen by way of fixing accountability. Under GST law, like in many other laws, we have a protection for public servants, that when you are acting in good faith under the statute, there cannot be any action taken against you. But when someone is threatening arrest as a tool as a coercive measure during a search and seizure, arrest is one thing, sir. I specifically wanted to give one example. There is a client of mine who is a listed company, and that CFO was locked up. He called me at midnight saying that, these guys are threatening arrest, which I'm okay with. I know you will get me bail, etc. But these guys are saying that I will release a news alert to all major publications saying that there is a 800 crore tax fraud or something like that, and your share price will drop. Is it worth fighting that? The loss of your share valuation, is it worth taking that contest? Sir, I don't know. I mean, this is, to my mind, a textbook case of stock market manipulation. And I'm sure, someone like a SEBI will have something to say with it. Of course, one can try and take protection under that section of GST law. But to my mind, sir, we have to have a definition of what is good faith. We have to have an illustration as to where good faith stops and bad faith begins. And in that case, we have to have accountability. So once we start fixing accountability for some of these things, I don't think there will be any iota of complaint. Today, I think so. That is the first points I wanted to start off with. Second, in terms of the overall construct, sir, you mentioned there are specified proscribed activities under 132. Of course, when we look at them, they are, of course, heinous activities, very deviant, very sort of punishable activities. But I'll take 2 examples to show how at a low threshold also those are being invoked. And these are again, sir, live sort of instances. The first one is, or rather the second one, issuance of invoice without any supply, leading to wrongful availment. Clearly, if I am issuing invoice without a supply, it's a fake invoice, etc. Heinous crime, and undoubtedly. But so what is also happening is this is being invoked when there is a cross charge within the same PAN number, within the same legal entity. If say Hyderabad registration has a lot of excess credit and there is a cross charge invoice to Delhi because Delhi has a lot of output liability, even in that scenario, it is being invoked. And I think there probably a different filter, a slightly different parameter needs to be applied to. The fourth activity, sir, on this list is, collection of any amount as tax, but not depositing it beyond a period of 3 months. Again, undoubtedly a clear-cut case of violation. But I have seen an example where this was invoked, sir, where there is an exemption that two parties have factored, that they believe there is this particular supply is exempted. Unfortunately, the contract said the words that the price is inclusive of GST, if any, compliances, if applicable, shall be undertaken, etc. Now, this is a boilerplate sort of a clause that no one bothered to change. And this was highlighted and emphasized upon to say that, see, the parties knew there is GST liability, yet you colluded and you have collected. So the rupees 100 that you have charged includes 18% GST, which you have collected and not deposited, and we can arrest you. I'm not saying, sir, in any of these cases, the arrest materialized, but the mere threat of it is sufficient at times to sort of, really scare, really coerce people into depositing tax. Also, sir, we are really happy, really sort of enthused by the instruction that has come in May. That should really help in many cases. But sir, if you know I'm sure you know the ground reality, what has started happening even before the instruction was issued. The search party would never allow a SSC to pay under protest or pay under any category. They will have to file DRC 03, and the checkbox, they will always make you pay under voluntary. And then it is up to you to file a letter of protest, whether or not you can get in a letter of protest, etc. If you are not allowed to file that letter of protest, going to a high court also becomes challenging. The high court says it's an afterthought, or is it?
In this era where you have the email ID of the officer right up to the chairman of the board, why a departmental authority could refuse to acknowledge a document of a protest letter? I don't really.
No, I'm not, sir, not acknowledge the.
No.
So what?
In a case where a coercion has happened, let us say for an argument's sake, that if a coercion has happened, a DRC 03 was used to deposit the tax during the proceedings, and you genuinely feel that this is not according to my free will and it was imposed on me under duress and I have been asked to pay this tax. If you send in an email is an irrefutable evidence to say that your consent was not there for the payment part of it. Why should you say that an officer will not take cognizance of that, or in a court of law or any higher level of grievance redressal? Why will this correspondence be taken note of it?
So I'll tell you, I'll sort of tell you what exactly transpired in the example that I'm giving. So around 5 a.m., the client was sort of pushed and he deposited the amount. And when he called me saying that, this is what I'm being forced to do, I said, don't worry, we will file a letter of protest. Before the search party left, they said, don't you dare file a letter of protest because we will definitely arrest you then. We have enough material. You don't even know what all material we have against you. So that is and of course, we still ended up filing the letter of protest and it got taken cognizance of in the High Court when we sort of went there. So the point I'm trying to make is, in this particular scenario, my client had the ability to reach out to get access to justice in a fairly expedited way. And I think the point that Vimalji was making, that there are a huge number of MSMEs who may not be as quick or who may not have the access to justice as expeditiously as in this case as that my client had. And I think that, of course, the law has to work for everyone. So I think that is the limited point, sir, that I'm making, and which is where, sir, the accountability point probably will go a long way in our SOP when we frame. Sir, in terms of the legal aspect of it, just to sort of give you a structure, arrest comes from section 69. We saw the 3 or 4 categories where arrest can be invoked. But the key sort of list or source of law is section 132, which lists down the offenses. There are a bunch of subsections under 132. There are about 4 activities where if the quantum of evasion goes beyond 5 crore, etc., and which I had listed in this slide, when arrest can be triggered under 69. Now, if you look at the heading of this slide, I have used the word pre-assessment arrest. Right? I have tried to draw a distinction between 69 and 132, and Mr. Rana will cover it in greater detail as to what is the distinction. I'll not spend too much time, but let's focus on the word pre-assessment. Why have I said pre-assessment? Because there are a bunch of judgments which have come in over the years, over the last 3-4 years, where it has been held by various high courts, notable being P.V. Ramanna Reddy, which got affirmed by the Supreme Court also, which said that for exercising power of arrest, I mean, the reason to believe for exercising power of arrest may exist even prior to completion of assessment. And this is something that has been very strongly emphasized and relied upon by the department. Of course, now the matter is before a 3-judge bench, as Sir also mentioned. A lot of constitutional arguments have been made, and we'll have to see. And for full disclosure, we are party to that litigation as a arguing counsel, like many of us here. But I think one specific point where, and this is of course we have argued before the Supreme Court also, if you look at the pari materia provision under service tax law, power of arrest, I mean, if you the provisions of both GST and service tax is before you, as you can see, they're very comparable. And this issue came up in the case of Make My Trip before Delhi High Court, which was later on affirmed by Supreme Court also. And Make My Trip happens to be a landmark case in terms of what are the sort of protections and checks and balances vis-a-vis arrest in a tax scenario. And the Delhi High Court said that arresting before completion of adjudication proceeding is akin to putting the cart before the horse. This is something that has been upheld by the Supreme Court. And I strongly hope that this will be taken into account. Of course, I'm not saying that under no circumstance whatsoever can arrest precede adjudication or assessment. There are, God knows, there are many cases where it should happen. But clear exclusion is needed if we are to make it constitutional, if we are to balance revenue interest with personal liberty. One of the things, and we don't need to look far, Make My Trip judgment itself laid down certain parameters that if you're a bona fide taxpayer, effectively, 3 or 4 parameters all adding up to that one conclusion, are you a bona fide taxpayer? Have you been in operation? What has been your compliance record? What has been, how much tax have you paid? All of those things. Are you a fly-by-night operator? Those things come in handy. So there is one specific point which can be done administratively, and this is envisaged in GST law, which is compliance rating, which we, I guess, never ended up, and it's a difficult thing to sort of implement probably. But I guess if that was there, probably it would have been very easy to lay down a SOP that for someone who has a compliance rating above a particular threshold, you cannot arrest. But something like that can be thought of, in terms of balancing the competing interests. Now, what are the key arguments that have been made by us before the Supreme Court in terms of the constitutional challenge? The first one, and these are not earth-shattering arguments, as you will see, the fact that reason to believe, is subjective, is open to misuse, and there are many instances of that. That is one point that we have highlighted. One legal point I think merits consideration, sir, for your attention also. Under GST law, there is no provision for custodial interrogation. I mean, in a police sort of scenario, the reason why we arrest at the outset is because there is a custodial interrogation that is required. In GST law, there is no custodial interrogation. That is not, at least the law does not envisage it. So really speaking, we need to see whether 69, and this is where the pre-assessment versus post-adjudication debate comes in, that if I am not supposed to do a custodial interrogation, for what purpose am I going to arrest? This is an argument, sir, we have I mean, in many cases, successfully been taken in high courts. One being recently in Delhi High Court in the case of Tarun Jain, where the Delhi High Court said that custodial interrogation is neither warranted nor envisaged provided for under the CGST Act. I think so. This is one legal rigmarole that we need to overcome or we need to deal with under GST law, because there is no provision of custodial interrogation. Another argument that has been tried before high courts and have failed, and rightly so in my opinion, is the fact that Article 246A does not give you a power to enact criminal law. And to that extent, you can't have a power of arrest, which to my mind is a weak argument, and it has rightly been rejected. They have said that if there is a power to enact a law pertaining to GST, there is a power to enact penal provisions thereunder, including arrest. Now, what is the Supreme Court going to do? That's $1 billion question. But I think given the recent trend in this, I mean, we can speculate with the greatest of respect that I don't think the Supreme Court is going to say that this is unconstitutional and it is struck down from the statute books. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't know if you agree or disagree. I think what is likely to happen is that there is going to be a lot of procedural safeguards that are going to be hopefully laid down or envisaged by the Supreme Court. And I sincerely hope they do that, like what happened in the DK Basu case. Detailed guidelines were laid down. So I think some of the points that I am making, whether it comes in terms of accountability, whether in terms of what is good faith or bad faith, whether in terms of how do you distinguish between various scenarios or various categories of taxpayers. What are some of you may be aware of the Karnataka High Court judgment in Swiggy, where they said that, you can't do recovery or provisional attachment if it's a bona fide taxpayer, and they have laid down 3-4 sort of guidelines. One expects that the Supreme Court will hopefully lay down in greater detail some of those guidelines. And of course, reiterate the DK Basu judgment, many of the protections therein, which have, to be fair, the CBIC has, as early as 2018, incorporated the entire set of DK Basu guidelines in their FAQ vis-a-vis arrest. But in specific cases when any of you or your clients are facing arrest, if DK Basu guidelines are not being met, those per se are a ground for a writ. And the last point I want to leave it with, and so this is also another point to be dealt with from a legal perspective. Since there is no custodial interrogation under GST, if I am arrested tomorrow, there will be a summons, there will be a summons proceedings and my statement will be recorded under oath. But the moment that happens, that violates Article 20, subclause 3 of right of self-incrimination, I could be arrested under 69 because I am accused of A, B, C, D, any of those 4 activities. The moment I am accused of that, and you are forcing me to depose under oath, I am becoming a witness against myself, because it is different from a custodial interrogation. Under custodial interrogation, it is inadmissible in evidence. So hence 23 does not apply. But the moment I am under oath post-arrest, I am clearly an accused. So which is the defense people take in summons before arresting?
But we have to have constitutional court holding that the doctrine of double jeopardy doesn't apply.
So this is self-incrimination. This is not double jeopardy. So this is one point, and I don't have a clear answer, sir, at this point. So the question of whether under a summons, like you rightly said, that tax officer is not a police officer. So statement made before a tax officer is admissible in evidence, which is undoubted, undisputed today. But post-arrest, I am an accused. And then if I am being forced to testify under oath, then it becomes a violation. I think so that is another legal rigmarole that one hopes Supreme Court deals with, or at least sir, in your SOP, I hope so that will be dealt with. With that, I'll close my session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I request to see Dhanendra Kumar Rana, sir, to present his presentation on the subject, including bailable and non-bailable offences and prosecution versus arrest, section 69 versus section 132 of the CGST Act. He is now currently a partner of Nitya Tax Associates. He has over 22 years experience in advising.
Mr. Raji, let them start, because I want all the speakers speak before member GST. That is important.
Okay, sir. Please request to please come and rise.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Very good afternoon. I'll straight away jump to my presentation because the time is short and we have to complete. So very quickly, I'll also add one point, sir. Lot has been said about these arrest-related matters. And I'm live with one example where, as Sudipto also mentioned about some e-com. So e-commerce, not a marketplace, but e-commerce, in a business-to-business model, where I know of currently, somebody, a director behind bars, and the issue is very, very simple because they never meet the supplier. What they do, because all the documents come, it's a Bangalore-based e-commerce, and say suppliers from all over India, they would submit their documents, including GST registration, etc., on their portal, and they verify that whether GST is valid, whether Aadhaar, PAN, and bank account details, everything is there, and based on that, they onboard the supplier. They buy goods, they pay through check, through banking channel, and once GSTR 1 is there, 2A it gets reflected, they avail credit. Even 3B has been filed by the supplier, even that is also getting reflected. And yet, because later the supplier is not traceable because for whatever reasons the GST authorities say your credit is ineligible and you pay or you will be arrested, and he has been arrested. And they will not record a statement, not a single statement. They will not record a statement of financial controller or of vice president purchase who actually deal, or the sales or the purchase side team. But no, only director is required, and statement is not required because our BFI analysis has clearly shown that the registration of those suppliers has been suspended with retrospective effect. Therefore, the person, your company is not eligible, and the person has been arrested. So the director is behind bars. So these are live cases, and notwithstanding the May 22 circulars or instructions that amount should not be asked for, this is the ground reality that is happening. That is the threat of arrest, and under threat of arrest, and after arrest, what will a person do? They'll say, okay, we'll deposit, but even then, no, nothing doing, we'll arrest you. So that is the ground reality, sir. I'll very quickly cover the topic of my presentation. So the topic is bailable, non-bailable offenses, and some part has been touched upon by Sudipto, and Bimalji also mentioned. So I'll very quickly tell you about, when we try to understand what is bailable, non-bailable, we also must understand what is cognizable and non-cognizable. And all these terms, they flow from Code of Criminal Procedure, CRPC. And they say that cognizable is one where arrest can be done without a warrant. It is for heinous or serious crimes like murder, rape, dowry, etc. And these are coming from CRPC. There is a list, Schedule 1, which specifies what offenses will be cognizable, what will be non-cognizable. And these are non-bailable, no warrant is required, and an officer can investigate this matter without seeking any prior permission from the magistrate. And non-cognizable, on the other end, is simple, offenses which are punishable less than 3-year types, and they are not so serious. So for arresting in those cases, a warrant is required and a permission is required. Now, this is from CRPC, okay? And when we see the corresponding provisions for bailable, non-bailable, what we'll find is that non-bailable, again, the cognizable ones are non-bailable, whereas the non-cognizable ones are bailable offenses. Now, one more important point that we can see is that for bailable offenses, CRPC also prescribes a limitation for filing charge sheet. So in criminal court, what happens in criminal cases is that, an offense, once a FIR is booked, first information report, police will start investigation. Once the investigation is over, if they have to arrest somebody, whether it is bailable, they will themselves grant bail. They record a statement under section 161, which is not admissible in evidence. Then, or if it is a non-bailable offense, they'll arrest the person, produce it before the magistrate, and magistrate then grants bail, etc. Once the investigation is over, they file what is called the charge sheet, and magistrate that then takes cognizance, and then the trial starts, etc., etc. So similar provision is there, parallel provision is there under indirect tax. Now, one point of distinction is that for bailable offense, there is a limitation also prescribed, 6 months, 1 year, 2 year, like that. That within that specified period, if the complaint is not filed, then the complaint cannot be filed. The charge sheet cannot be filed if the investigation is not completed. But in direct tax laws, that limitation is missing completely, sir. So that is one point that I thought I'll bring, that what is the parity between the criminal procedure code versus indirect taxes. Even for offenses which are bailable, the sword is always hanging. The person can be prosecuted, and I have seen in my life under customs, etc., especially when the first adjudication and everything is over and that gets settled, say at tribunal or at high court or a Supreme Court level, and the complaint being filed even after 15 years of actual commission of offense. So such cases I have come across. There should be some time limit at least, so that the person, the sword is never hanging. Now, coming to distinction, because I need to also address the distinction between what is arrest and then the prosecution provisions, and when prosecution gets triggered and what is. So some of the points, again, as it has already been covered, that section 69 provides for arrest, and where a commissioner having reason to believe can order arrest. And that arrest is possible for 4 offenses. Those are punishable under section 132. And which have also been covered. There are 4 offenses, whether supply without goods, or the goods are supplied without there being any invoice, or there is fraudulent ITC. So these are tax collected but not paid. So these are the 4 offenses for which arrest can be made. Now, then there are provisions which specify whether the offense is punishable with 3 years or 5 years or 2 years or whatever the RI is. So if you will see, if the amount tax involved is more than 5 crore, then there is imprisonment up to 5 years or and fine. And such offenses are cognizable and non-bailable. That means the person has to be produced. So whatever DK Basu said, those have been incorporated in CRPC also, those guidelines. Some of those guidelines have been incorporated, as Sudipta also mentioned, in the CBIC flyer, as well as in the some of the provisions here, that within 24 hours a person should be produced before the magistrate. But some of those guidelines are only in paper, not completely followed, like permission, for consulting with a lawyer. Those are not allowed. So I can, on practical level, the DGGI or the officers, they don't allow consultation with lawyers. They don't allow presence of lawyer in the visible distance. They do not have any recording, video recording. So none of those things are being done, even though there are directions from courts, but none of those you'll find in place. So if the tax amount involved is between 2 crore and 5 crore, then it's up to 3 years. And these are the cases where, sir, you also mentioned that the deputy commissioner or the assistant commissioner can themselves grant bail. And the difficulty here is, and I'm alive with such matters also, the conditions that they impose are I mean, they'll ask you to pay the entire 100% of the tax, full interest, and 100% of the penalty. And plus, every week you have to present, you surrender your passport, and the kind of conditions that are imposed, no court will ever impose. So they've already adjudicated, collected everything before they will grant bail, sir. So that is what the practical side of this kind of provision is, where the bail, the officers are allowed. Now, sir, there are other offenses also prescribed under section 132, which are from clause E to L. And those are the offenses for which arrest is not contemplated, but prosecution is still possible. They can also be punished where the amount is, say, less than, more than 1 crore and less than 2 crore. Then the imprisonment prescribed is up to 1 year and fine. And if for abatement kind of a offense, then the punishment is 6 months or with fine. So there also prosecution is possible, but not arrest. Now, another point of distinction is that, as I already mentioned, that in case of arrest, it is bailable, and the bail is granted when the tax amount is less than 5 crore, but more than 2 crore. one point important is that if charge sheet, like I mentioned that in the CRPC, when the police investigates a matter, they file a charge sheet before magistrate, and magistrate then takes cognizance. So one aspect of the matter is arrest, and for arrest, if it is say more than 5 crore, then court, magistrate or the sessions court or the high court, whichever the court is, you will need to file a bail application before that court, and only that court can grant you bail. Once the bail has been granted or not granted, in either situation, if bail has been granted, then also department, that does not mean that arrest does not mean that prosecution has initiated. Prosecution does not get initiated at that level. Prosecution gets initiated only after the commissioner files a complaint, and not himself, but he will authorize somebody to file a criminal complaint against a person, whereby they request the court of magistrate to try that person, criminal trial. So only then it starts. But if that criminal complaint is not filed within 60 days of the arrest, then, and if the person is still under behind bars, then there is a default bail. So default bail that flows not only from section 69, this comes from section 167 of the Code of Criminal Procedure. So that default bail is there. Now, I'll skip this portion about DK Basu, because much has been said about it, and the instructions also, while these are welcome instructions, sir, any day. However, ground reality is that at least the investigating officers are not, they're just not looking at it. I'll come to the prosecution process, and this, so the first row, if you will see here, there is initiation of investigation, and then authorization to arrest from commissioner, and then followed by arrest, and then production before magistrate. This is prior to prosecution. Prosecution gets launched once a complaint is filed. Complaint authorization should be there from the commissioner, and complaint is filed before the court of magistrate for prosecution. After evaluating that complaint, the magistrate will take cognizance or not take cognizance. If he takes cognizance, then trial will start. If he does not take cognizance, prosecution, there's nothing left. The matter is over then and there. Then if the magistrate takes cognizance, there will be something called pre-charge evidence. So the prosecution will, the complainant will record his statement, and then prosecution witnesses will come, departmental witnesses in this case. And all their evidences are recorded, examination, chief, cross-examination, everything. Once that is there, then there is framing of charge. There will be arguments on charge, and then court frames the charge. If he comes to the conclusion, it may discharge the accused, or they may frame the charge. And charge will be that, okay, this is the charge against you based on the evidence and everything that has come before the court. Now, once that charge is framed, then if the person is discharged, matter ends. If charge is framed, then there will be post-charge evidence. Again, prosecution witnesses will come. Again, further cross-examination, etc. will happen. Once that is over, there will be statement of accused under section 313 of CRPC. And once that statement is over, then you have the defense evidence. So defense will produce, accused will produce his own statement or other witnesses or whatever evidence that he wants to rely on. And then court hears the final argument and passes order for either acquittal or conviction or whichever. And then, so this essentially is the prosecution process. Now, what the distinction, as I mentioned, is that what you will see is that in very few cases, the prosecution gets launched, which is correct. Most of the cases are, and this arrest has become a tool for collecting the tax amount and everything. This is the fastest, and you will see that DGGI Delhi in particular has broken all past records of collection. And the reason is because every time there is a threat of arrest, and that is how they are able to collect. So the SOPs will be welcome, sir, if there are SOPs, and these should not only be internal, but should be publicized also, so that honest taxpayers can at least take benefit of that, and can ask the authorities to look into the same. Also, sir, the various guidelines that are awaited, whether from Supreme Court or from other authorities, those are also very, very critical for this kind of draconian provisions, because at the end of the day, the liberty of a person is at stake. And again, as Bimalji and everybody said, we are not arguing in favor of any guilty person. Here we are talking only about bona fide taxpayers, where there can be interpretation issue. There can be issue as regards the documentation and the evidence has or the appreciation has not happened. The department just wants to collect upfront. That is the only difficulty, and then arrest becomes a threat there. So that is the only reason why this is causing problem. Because these days, sir, you will appreciate that while you have rightly mentioned that this is 5 crore of tax amount and 25 crore of the value, but in large setups, 5 crore is nothing. If somebody is paying 200 crore of tax every year, for him 5 crore is nothing. And if out of 500 vendors that he deals with, if 2 or 3 vendors department says could not be found, that does not mean that he was actually into that kind of business. He's running a genuine business, a startup, a technocrat, IITN. He will not get involved in these things, but the fate is altogether different. So that's all from my side, and because in the interest of time, I'll quickly wrap it up. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I request to Ms. Kanupriya Madam to present our presentation on legal validity of recovery proceeding in GST, provisional attachment of property or bank account, when, why, and recourse available. Please, madam.
Can you just give, yeah. Can you move it, please? Good evening, everyone. So I'll quickly come to the topic. So my topic is recovery proceedings and provisional attachment. So over here, whomsoever is sitting here, I have one question. How many of you have heard this recovery proceedings or provisional attachment proceedings either being conducted by the department in your own company or with somebody, when you're associated with someone? How many of you have ever, seen these kind of notices, recovery notices? Okay, 3. I hope all of you sitting here have seen. Okay, so in last 4 years, I have seen at least 150 such notices wherein those recovery notices or recovery orders or provisional attachment orders should not have been passed. And I'm talking about, 4 years, 1 professional. How many would have been there? And what are these recovery proceedings and provisional attachment proceedings? Why do we even need it? We have so many show cause notices, provisions relating to show cause notice. Why do we have these kind of provisions over here? So basically, if you see, the initiation of recovery proceedings generally has to come after an order has been passed. What is an order? Once a show cause notice is issued, then I file the reply, then there is a judgment. That judgment is an order, right? In my case, there will be an assessing authority writing that you are liable to pay X amount plus interest at so-and-so rate plus penalty, etc., etc. It comes to a lump sum figure. What do you do generally after that when such order has come? You go into an appeal or you pay, right? And what if you disappear? How will the government come after you? They would come after you in the form of a recovery proceedings. They would say that any amount is payable, X amount is payable by you. There has been an order, you did not file any appeal, you are liable to pay X amount. That means within 3 months, if you don't file an appeal, you have accepted that amount. Then with the recovery order, I will collect that money from you. But is it really happening? Is it the manner in which a recovery proceedings are being conducted? That is exactly what we need to see. What is the purpose of this section? Section 78 is very simple. You get an order, you don't file an appeal, and that is when I come after you to recover that money, and you should, as an honest taxpayer, should pay that money to me. What are the modes of recovery? Sometimes the person goes bankrupt. Sometimes the person doesn't have money. He's absconding. So I can either recover it from you, from the accused or assessee, or I can recover it from some third party from whom that assessee had to recover the money. There are multiple mechanisms being given. The whole idea is to protect the interest of the revenue. What is provisional attachment? When does provisional attachment comes into picture? Earlier, prior to 1/1/2022, provisional attachment used to come into picture in very specific circumstances. When you have not filed the returns or summary assessments in certain cases, certain show cause notices have been issued and the revenue authorities are sure that he's not going to pay the money or he may run away, then the provisional attachment would come. So recovery proceedings are after the order has been passed. Provisional attachment is now after 1st of January 2022 is generally in all cases at the initiation of any investigation, whether it is inspection, search, seizure, assessment, demands, recovery. Any time I as a department can come after you to recover the money, or provisionally attach your money, not the recover, provisionally attach your bank accounts or your properties in such a manner that the revenue is being realized in case the order has been passed against you. Very simple provisions, right? So the difference between recovery and provisional attachment is, before adjudication of the proceedings, you will have the provisional attachment of the properties or bank accounts, etc. And after would be recovery of the money. Now, both the provisions are not as a norm. They are basically exceptions. But how we are practically applying it is as a normal proceedings. In most of the cases where the commissioner has a doubt that the person may run away, he may not have enough properties, or he may not have enough business and will not pay the money. In that scenario, it should be entertained. But what is really happening is that the minute a show cause notice is issued, or minute anybody goes for an investigation, they have a threatening sword which says that I am going to attach your property provisionally. Now, this is a huge setback for an assessee, generally a honest taxpayer. Even the Madras High Court has said that it is going to lead to a liquidity crunch to an assessee if you provisionally attach his properties. And there are plethora of cases where against a provisional attachment, the assessee has gone to the court asking them that how can they provisionally attach my property when I'm into the business over here since so long? Am I going to run away? There are multiple reasons why they cannot provisionally attach my property, whether it is a procedural aspect or it could even be a substantive aspect. Now, what really happens? Why this provisional attachment is being used in this draconian manner? Let us find out that specific reason why provisional attachment, or why recovery of money even when you have not filed an appeal. Suppose if you have to file an appeal within 3 months, there are a lot of instances where recovery proceedings have been initiated against you even before the expiry of 3 months. Why? The reason is that when you file an appeal, when you file an appeal before the Commissioner appeals, you pay 10% of tax in dispute. When you file it before the appellate tribunal, it is 20%. And when you go to the High Court, then you have to deposit the full 100%. But now it is a way in which the government or the department is holding that money of yours in a kind of an escrow account that you say. They don't appropriate it towards the tax, but they hold the money. Now, when you attach the property, it comes as X amount towards the tax has already been realized, or it would be realized subject to XYZ decisions. So these are the mechanisms to reach the targets. That is exactly where we all are suffering. Even the department, the government, as well as the assessee. When you are trying to reach the target, the provisions are very well valid, because you should have those provisions to ensure that the revenue is not taken away. Now, as everybody has talked about instruction number 1 of 2022, Since officials were using coercive measures to recover the tax dues during the course of search, inspection, or investigation, CBIC issued instructions to the officials to not to recover at that point in time. But what about the provisional attachment of the property? We're still stuck there. So basically, what has come out is that by way of these two provisions of provisional attachment as well as recovery, the department has been given an authority starting from the date of your search till the date of the order, and beyond that, beyond the point of time where the tax due is not settled, the power to extract the money. Now, are courts really helping? That is another way, because every time when there are these investigations or after the investigations, we have these recovery orders, or we have provisional attachment orders. What is the view that has been taken by the court? We would generally say that the court is going to strike them down, but even the courts are divided. There have been few cases like the first one that I have mentioned. Recovery order was issued within 3 months from the date of the order, whereas it can be done only after 3 months. The court stayed the operation of the recovery order. But what was the subject, what was the condition? That whatever amount you have paid will remain paid, plus pay 50% more of the tax due. So I could have filed an appeal within 3 months by paying only 20% before the tribunal. But what did, when I approached the High Court against the recovery order, they said whatever you have deposited remains deposited. You pay 50% more, and then I will say the operations of the recovery order. Am I getting any relief there? I didn't get any relief. But there are exactly opposite cases as well. There are cases when the department had encashed my bank guarantee. The court ordered the department to refund the money and also asked me to give the fresh bank guarantee. My only problem comes here is that there is no static view, either by the courts or by the department. We don't have any guidelines as to what is the basis on which recovery orders should be issued or a provisional attachment orders should be issued. They're all talking about discretion. Courts also have the discretion. One place they asked 50% deposit, the other place they asked only to give the bank guarantee again. Even there are other cases where they said issuance of recovery order before the expiry of 3 months is contrary to the provisions of law, and they struck down the recovery order. So now I have to also then trade between the courts which are giving me the favorable orders and the courts which are giving me the unfavorable orders, or the department, GST authorities which are giving me favorable order, which are, so everything is on a discretion platter. Whose discretion it is? It is we who are deciding it. There are no specific guidelines. So either the court should issue certain guidelines or the department should issue guidelines, that these are all exceptional circumstances. Now, this is one very important and interesting case that had come across. The person failed to file the return and his property was attached. The court stayed the attachment order on the condition that you're going to pay 1.5 crores every month in your tax till the disposal of the case. Now, how am I going and why am I going to pay that 1.5 crores as tax? There is no linkage, right? So in those circumstances, if the courts, there is no consistency in the orders, that is where we are also lagging behind, or we are not able to get the stability. There are multiple cases also which talks about attachment of properties belonging to another person. Now, it is only the property of the taxable person can be provisionally attached. So the department went on to attach somebody else's property also. Like if I'm a defaulter, they are going to attach my husband's property. If my firm is defaulter, they are going to attach my property. It is only and only the person who has defaulted. You can't keep on going after the people who are related to me. That is something that the court has held is not permissible. Even there's one last decision which said, in absence of any material linking the petitioner to the company in the fake credit aspect, the bank accounts of the petitioner cannot be attached. Now, there are fake invoicing that is going on between the company or some Y person. I, as a director, or I, as as somebody associated with the company, my property cannot get attached. That is the thin line which one should not cross. But how we treat is that the company is equal to its director, and or the the finance person who is working in the company is equal to the company. So there is a veil between a company and the person working for the company. That veil is being pierced here. That is something which again goes back to the court. And court has held that no, you cannot do that. Company is a separate legal entity. Any property in the name of the company, only those can be attached provisionally, not the people working for the company. Now, in case of provisional attachment, what is the recourse that has been given? So once a provisional or attachment order is being passed, first the order is being passed. It's not the case where a show cause notice is issued.
Shall I interrupt you?
Yes, sir.
Sir has to leave. So just maybe you can just pause for 1 or 2 minutes.
Yes, please.
Then you can carry on with the presentation.
Some of the responses I'll give and then come back. Yes. Probably I may, for the time question and answer. To go back to North Block, I had committed a meeting by 6 o'clock. I'm already running late by about half an hour, but it's very interesting. And I think a couple of points what Mr. Deepto and Rial has mentioned about it is very, very relevant. We need to have a perspective by which we have to make a clear distinction between what is a matter of an interpretation and where a matter of a fraudulent conduct. Perhaps I think that's very, very well taken, that point. Some of the provisions, when we look at it, a law as a whole, it cannot be drafted in a manner that it would take care of an individual situations. It is done for a larger public good. Some of the provisions which has been talked about, some of the issues what has been brought up in the discussions, they would require an amount of an administrative effort on our part to look into what are those pain points which we need to address. I think some of you mentioned about the recovery circular as such. When we mentioned that recovery circular, we stated the obvious. We didn't say anything new. But kindly bear in mind one aspect, all of you need to be very, very clear. When we're talking about an issue like a provisional attachment, what the speaker was just mentioning about it, I do give an example of what happened in Gurugram about exactly a month ago. Total 19.6 crore just taken away by creating a fictitious audit trail of creating a registration, GSTR1, GSTR3B, bank account, transactions over. We are trailing the money trail of that 19 crores. With best of my effort in the department, I'm not in a position to recover even 33 lakhs. It just happened about a month back. You need to be on the other side to appreciate exactly what's happening with regard to the fraudsters. Kindly keep that in mind, perspective. That when these provisions are there, it is provisions meant for certain objects which the parliament has given the sanction to do it. It's not by executive instruction. Provisional attachment is in 83. I think we have discussed about it. Did we not have an attachment provision in the Finance Act? Section 87 provided for it. We had a huge jurisprudential thing as to whether a Section 87 could be done prior to assessment. We have in this country where persons self-assess the tax and admitted the liability in 83, but this still not chose to pay. And when department went for an attachment, I think it did work. We do have under the IBC, let me tell you, the person who commits a fraud, hundreds of crores, and goes to IBC and files an insolvency proceedings and completely wipes off the liability, creating a public fraud. What do we do with them? Do we wait for them to be adjudication procedure to be completed, the appeal period to be completed, and wait for to recover what? Kindly bear this in mind. These are the exceptions where we need to exercise. For a minute, please don't take me wrong. Where we need to act upon in prudence for the public well-being, the department will and continue to be acting firmly against them. We will exercise with full force the powers what the parliament is entrusted to the executive in achieving that objective. Make no mistakes. But certainly in a matter where it's an interpretation, where there are two views possible, there is an adjudication proceedings requires to be concluded. You mentioned about the pre-deposit matter. We don't keep it in escrow account of a pre-deposit. It is adjusted against the Consultant Fund of India. It is collected. For that matter, any money lies in the cash ledger is taken as an accountant for the CFI, or for that matter, CFS. A pre-deposit is an era which we have evolved over a period of time to prevent the misuse of the very same discretion which you have mentioned about it. What was happening? Forum shopping used to be the normal trend in this country. A stay petition was more important than a regular matter of hearing before the tax tribunals and the appellate authorities. Did we not arrest that misuse by bringing a pre-deposit amount? What does the GST law says? Insofar as the liability which is not disputed, you must deposit it. And in respect of the disputed liability, you pay this much a percent in order to write an appeal. An appeal is a vestitive right. It's not a natural right. It's not a fundamental right. Let us be very clear about it. When we are talking about input tax credit, again, it is a vestitive right. You have heard about the Honorable Supreme Court in VKC footsteps. Just merely because an input has suffered the tax, it should be set off and it should be removed. It's not a natural right. It comes with a very, very clear mandate from the parliament. It is subject to such safeguards, limitation, conditions, subject to which alone the credit will flow to the recipient. Now, when we deliberate upon an important topic of this nature, kindly don't lose focus on the fact we are dealing with a situation where I just mentioned about as a matter of statistics. If I take the 70,000 crores of the fraudulent credit involving close to almost about 20,000 investigations and arrest of 600 persons, yes, some of the points what you raised is very, very relevant. We need to take care of. Even one single innocent person should not suffer. We should all work towards that direction. I fully endorse Mr. Bimal's view that if a person is innocent and if his person is not committed or alleged to have committed an offense in that magnitude to the point in which we want these provisions to be applied stringently, we would take note of that. But certainly, kindly don't argue the matter to say that a person who has been completely committing a fraud, because a fraud is a fraud is a fraud. There is no right to a fraudster. On fraud, these provisions would apply in full force. And we would make it very, very clear to all the professionals and participants today that we are in a position today, when we talk about the stability of the GST, the ease of doing business, the issue with regard to the base expansion, the formalization happening, the reforms will take a further step ahead only when we have a tax system which is free from this type of malice. Imagine if, you see today, one of the important things, a public debate comes is, how does the tax revenue in the GST is going up like this? Did we raise the taxes? No. What is the growth at which the GDP is growing? At about 8%. How did we did the achievement of a growth in GST of 19% last year? How did income tax grow at about 49%? With no tax rates increased? Let us introspect. If formalization was not there, if structural corrections were not to be happening, these tax revenues were not possible. You today heard in the paper today, the first 3 months of this current financial year, the direct taxes have posted a growth rate of 51%. Did tax rates go up? The reading is very clear on the wall that formalization contributed towards the counter of the introduction of the GST, played a major role in formalizing the Indian economy. I think let us be very clear. We would like to hear the trade and the professionals in ensuring that the laws passed by the parliament and state legislatures are implemented in their true spirit and purpose. We are completely committed to that. But if I'm attaching under section 83 an attachment, again, I would say this power is exercised by the commissioner. There could be some cases where there could be lapses, we will deal with them. But don't say 83 is against my fundamental principles. 19 crores of the government money has been taken away. Who is responsible for this? There could be some blameworthy conduct on the part of the department officials who have processed the refund. But I have provided an automated route by which I have promised to the honest taxpayer that within 60 days, I'll pay the refund to you. I don't verify the tax invoices like what I was doing in the GST period, the pre-GST period. You file a 3B, I match it with an R1. I see the tax has been paid. Yes, Mr. Jain was correct that L1, L2, beyond that L3, I will not be in a position to do it. I fully appreciate that aspect. But time and again, we have come across in the department where the culpability, the collusion is glaring and writ large on the person who has sought to fraud the system. For them, please don't argue the fundamental rights. You and I pay taxes, and that tax goes for the welfare and the common good. And if that money is siphoned off from the things, we talk about embezzlement. Don't you think taking the money from the government in terms of a fraudulent refund is not an embezzlement? Is it not criminal? Should not the government have the power to recover it by all means at the earliest point? Do I wait for adjudication for years together to recover? I don't get to see a person who has committed a bill trading within 1 month. It's a constant fight against the fraudsters. E-way bill, e-invoice, discipline filing returns. We were starting with about 71% people were filing the returns on time. Today we have come to 95%. And this would come only by systemic changes. And kindly bear in mind, because government will completely listen to for preventing administrative excesses. Government will walk the path in terms of ensuring that the tax is administered in a manner in which the law mandates. But please don't take a brief for the persons who commit a fraud, where I will ever exercise the power of arrest, where I will exercise the power of preventive measures in terms of attachment. I'll do. I think my learned friend talked about the liability of a director in terms of the liabilities created. Kindly read the GST law. In case of a fraudulent conduct, a director will be personally held, and the corporate will doesn't work here. We have drafted the law with the due diligence because the Companies Act 2013, the Gujarat VAT Act provided for this. After a lot of deliberations, we have introduced this provision. If a director of a company, be it a public limited, private limited company, if he has conducted himself in a fraudulent manner, he will be personally held responsible and his property shall stand attached. Make no mistake on that. If it's an interpretation, if it is a matter of two views are possible, yes, we will agree. But if there is a palpable evidence that he was a part of the conduct of the fraud, no matter whether it's a director or in the garb of a limited liability company, the law will find its ways. And we have provided for the provisions, and the provisions can be challenged in the court of law. But let me tell you very clearly, a director who is found to be conducting himself in a fraudulent manner is personally liable, and his property can be attached. And our recovery proceedings provide for that. Thank you very much. For positive time, I will not be in a position to do much, but I want to assure all of you, standing before you, I know that the topic was very hot. I want to listen to you because it's always sitting on the other side. We feel that our laws are being correctly implemented, and there is a lot of thing what believe is correct. I want to listen to you. That's why I said, even though the topic was an hot topic which is being deliberated among the professional community today, but that's my object, because I want to learn, I want to listen, I want to look at the pain points. There are great takeaways by participating in the meeting where my two learned colleagues have said that there are some things which we need to address it. I'm glad that before we go into the SOP, I had an opportunity to listen to some of those very valuable suggestions. I'll definitely look into that and see what best we can do. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much, sir. And let me compliment that you have given your 2-3 hours and you have listened to us. And rest assured from PSD, we are on the side of honest taxpayer and we will remain forever. Just allow me. Can you get me mementos? Yeah.
Yes.
Memento.
Dr. Mahesh Gupta ji, we request our former president, Dr. Mahesh Gupta ji, to present a memento to our chief guest, Shri DP Nagendra Kumar ji, member GST Central Board of Indirect Taxes. And I request to present a plant also to our chief guest. And I request our chair of the committee, Indirect Taxes Committee, Shri Bimal Jain ji, to present a bouquet of flowers to our chief guest, Dr. Nagendra Kumar ji. Shri DP Nagendra Kumar ji. Our chair. Yes. So we invite our next speaker. We invite our next speaker, esteemed speaker, Ms. Kanupriya Bhargava ji. Now I would request. Yes, please.
Divya, can you just please go back to the previous slide? So if you see the last point that we were talking about, whether the property of the director can be attached. So it is in the absence of any material linking. The petitioner to the company in the fake credit aspect, the bank accounts of those director cannot be attached. So yes, there is a provision under the act, but how we are using those provisions is what is relevant. If the person doesn't have any material linking, he's not even aware of the fake invoicing. You don't have anything to connect him with the fake invoicing. You cannot attach his property. If we move forward, what is the recourse to these provisional attachment? When you're first, you issue an attachment order. Unlike, so there are under the, league, when we study law, we say there are two kinds of hearings. One that is giving prior to the, order is being issued, the other side is going to hear you out and then they will issue the order. The second way is very funny. I even never liked it during the, college times also, when they would say that first I will pass the order and then I will listen to your arguments. So this is called post-order hearings. And I would never understand, what does it mean? That means first I will make up my mind that I will not, I will issue you a provisional attachment order and then I will listen to your grounds. So basically, will I ever change my own order? Very, very rare, right? I cannot first pass an order, suddenly I change my mind and say that, okay, my order was wrong, I withdraw it. It happens very rarely. So, under the provisional attachment, first the order is being issued, then an opportunity to be heard is being given, and then after that, the commissioner will make his observations after the written submissions. Pehle hi de do thodi si hearing. Why to go to the order and then change the order? Issue me a show cause notice first. Why your property should not be provisionally attached? What difference will it make? And because first you will attach my property, then you will pass an order to release my property. Do step chalke, you will come back one step. Right? What a pain point. At least when a show cause notice is issued, I can approach the authority, the higher authority. Maybe I can go for a writ. Or maybe I can file any other, application that I should. So in those circumstances, the recourse to attachment of the property which is given under the Act is not proper. And hence, the guidelines for proper procedure, the Supreme Court has to jump in. And they gave the guidelines the Supreme Court gave the guidelines in the case of Radhakrishna Industries. Now, the court has to tell the department what are the guidelines, or the government, that how you should apply this law. Right? They are saying that these are draconian in nature, but we want to close our eyes. If it is draconian in nature, at least put some guidelines over there to actually ensure that it is applicable only in certain circumstances. Now, these three provisions which we have been talking about, the arrest, the provisional attachment, as well as recovery, all these three are basically the manner in which these provisions are being used are nothing but a harassment to the assessees. In most of the cases, I agree that there are certain genuine cases where these provisions must be applied. But again, as we are talking about, it is more of an exception than a norm. So in all of this, the department has been actually given a tool in which they can make the assessee pay the money. So with this, I'll close my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much for providing your all presentation in that too in the two parts. So thank you very much. Now I would request Shri Karan Sachdevji to present his presentation on the provisions for arrest under GST, measures relating to arrest to aid in the investigation of GST related crimes and legal jurisprudence and arrest provisions. He is a joint partner in the litigation team of Lakshmi Kumaran and Sridharan. He has over 10 years of experience and specializes in High Court and Supreme Court litigations pertaining to indirect taxes. He regularly argues cases before several high courts and has a vast experience in dealing with complex litigations. Shri Karan Sachdevji.
Thank you, sir. Very good evening to all the members of the dais and everyone present over here. Much has been said already on arrest provisions, even on the constitutional validity, and the practical examples have been given under various circumstances where these provisions have led to injustice and abuse. So I'll focus the presentation today. I'll keep it short and not try to repeat what has been said. And I will focus purely on the constitutional aspect and the narrow argument pertaining to the constitutional validity of Section 69, especially its application in the context of pre-adjudication when the provisions are invoked. So the debate today from both sides reflect one thing which jurists around the world have time and again spoken about: the perennial problem of statecraft in trying to balance the needs of law enforcement to protect, to enforce the law and to protect citizens from oppression and injustice at the hands of the enforcement machinery. This is what jurist Lewis Mayers and even Justice Cardozo in different words pointed out. And even the Supreme Court has said that the quality of a nation's civilization can largely be measured by the method it uses in enforcement of criminal law. And in today's discussion, it came out as to the importance of the arrest provisions and how it is possibly misused at times. This goes to show how difficult this problem is, and something that has to be dealt with due precaution, and the process has to evolve. Now, the constitutional safeguard, which many of the other speakers also pointed about, was regarding Article 21 of the Indian Constitution, which says that no person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to procedure established by law. Now, the phrase procedure established by law was initially interpreted by the Supreme Court in 1950 in OK Gopalan and subsequently for 3 decades to mean that so long as Parliament has made a procedure by which a personal liberty can be taken away, so long as the procedure exists as to when and how the arrest has to take place, and that so long as the procedure is followed, the court cannot question whether the procedure was right, fair, unfair, arbitrary, or unreasonable. To give an example, if the Parliament were to pass a law saying that death penalty will be executed by way of boiling in oil, this was an example quoted in the Supreme Court. They said, while it might shock the conscience of the court, their hands are tied because it is for the Parliament to lay down as to how the procedure established by law will be, and the courts cannot step into that realm. This position of law continued till 1970. In 1970, in R.C. Cooper's case, 11-judge bench of the Supreme Court overruled A.K. Gopalan to hold that the phrase procedural established in law must be interpreted to mean a fair and just procedure and a reasonable procedure which is not arbitrary. Now, the concept of fairness and reasonableness and arbitrariness is traceable to Article 14. In other words, the court said that Article 14 and Article has to be read into Article 21. And in 1978, in Maneka Gandhi's case, Supreme Court said that Articles 14, 19, and 21, all 3 of these articles must be read into each other. And in words of Justice Nariman, they cross-fertilize each other. In that context, the provisions of Article 21 has to be interpreted, and any arrest provision has to pass the muster of this test that it must be reasonable, non-arbitrary, and fair. A very interesting observation in one of the judgments of Justice Nariman in this context. This was the case of Muhammad Arif versus Union of India. It's a 2016 Supreme Court judgment, where he says that the origin of Article 21 can be traced back to Magna Carta in 1215, I'm sorry, where King John of England entered into passed a charter, which was the Magna Carta. There was an agreement with the barons, where 39th article provided for personal liberty. But that article was declared void by the Pope under the church, and it never kicked into operation. Justice Nariman says in India also, from 1950 till 1978, Article 21 did not kick into operation the way it should have. And after 1978, once it became unshackled, today Article 21 represents the single most important fundamental right in the Constitution. In that context, let us see DK Basu and all has been addressed in detail by the co-speaker, so I'll not like to go into detail in that. Just one thing that can be perhaps noted is the judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court in DK Basu itself. The guidelines laid down, it was specifically stated, would also apply to the officers of the Enforcement Directorate, including the DRI, as well as the officers of the Customs and Excise. So by virtue of the law laid down by the Supreme Court, irrespective of any instruction or absence thereof under the GST laws, the guidelines laid down by the Supreme Court in DK Basu should ideally be followed. We have, of course, heard examples of an instance. We all know of instances where it may not be followed in all cases. Now, the statutory provisions have been dealt with threadbare. Now, there are also questions which arose before High Courts in P.V. Ramana Reddy and Vimal Yashwant Goswami, which was referred to by co-speakers as well, wherein one of the questions was whether in a situation where a pre-complaint, a pre-filing of a complaint or a charge sheet, when a arrest takes place, would the provisions of CRPC be applicable? Courts have taken a view, at least 2 high courts have taken a view that they would not be applicable. And the remedy in such a situation would be by filing a writ petition for a pre-trial arrest as opposed to an anticipatory bail. Whereas there are other judgments, for instance, the judgment in the case of the judgment by Punjab Haryana High Court, as well as Madras High Court, which have taken a view the provisions of CRPC can apply. So there are conflicting judgments on this point. And the Supreme Court, taking note of the conflicting judgments in Sapna Jain, had also admitted the matter, which I believe was heard as a part of the larger batch, which was being referred to by Mr. Sudipta also, and the judgment in which has been reserved by the Supreme Court and is expected sometime in July, perhaps. Now, talking about objects of arrest before adjudication, it was pointed out in detail by the co-speakers as well that it is important sometimes for the department to arrest a person at a even a pre-show cause stage, at the initial stages of investigation, to ensure that the accused does not tamper with the evidence and does not influence the investigation. And the philosophy behind it is in fact traceable even to the CRPC and under criminal jurisprudence, wherein pre-trial arrest powers have been conferred on police officers. This is a similar provision to that, where a pre-show cause or a pre-adjudication, at a pre-adjudication level, power of arrest has been conferred on the officers under the GST Act. Now, judgment of the Make My Trip was referred to by more than one colleague, more than one speaker here. So I'll not take much time to again go through this judgment, where the Honorable Delhi High Court sort of restricted the applicability of arrest provisions in the context of service tax. And Justice Muralidhar, in he was very concerned by the facts of the case. And I believe it's those facts which led to this judgment, which were extreme facts and extreme bad facts for the revenue and good facts for the assessee, where the CEO of a company like a Make My Trip, which when you and I book flight or hotel bookings through that company, they collect not only the consideration, they collect the tax also on behalf of either the airline or the hotelier. And some of those hotel companies thereafter had not deposited taxes with the government. So the allegation made was that Make My Trip as a company collected taxes and did not deposit it with the government. On this pretext, the arrest provisions were invoked. Obviously, this was an extreme sort of a bad factual position, which led to the challenge and ultimate judgment in the case of Make My Trip by Delhi High Court. And the Supreme Court upheld this view, not just by dismissing in limine, but in a civil appeal after the SLP was admitted in the civil appeal. As a consequence, this judgment has precedently value under Article 141 of the Constitution. In that context today, however, this provision, this position of law is not being strictly followed in the context of GST. It has been cited, unsuccessfully cited, if I may say so, in arguments before the Honorable Telangana High Court, as well as before the Gujarat High Court, where the assessee sought to contend that invocation of arrest provisions under Section 69 prior to adjudication or prior to even issuance of a show cause notice is unconstitutional and illegal. However, the courts in both these cases took a view that Section 69 and 132 operate in different fields to some extent, and 69 being a supportive provision for search and seizure. Accordingly, arrest provision under 69 can be invoked even prior to adjudication or prior to issuance of a show cause notice. Now, talking about the possible arguments available to the SSE, as we discussed initially, any procedure which takes away personal liberty of a person has to pass the muster, and the law has to be reasonable and pass the muster of non-arbitrariness. In this context, the best arguments available with the assessee is to argue that The invocation of arrest provisions prior to even a show cause notice or prior to even completion of investigation is arbitrary, as the assessee does not even get an opportunity to examine or answer the allegations leveled against him. It is not even appraised of while it is informed about the grounds of arrest in terms of section 69 subsection 2, it does not get a detailed grounds or the order in writing in terms of the reasonable belief that was found by the commissioner at the stage when he is arrested. And the other arguments you all heard from my co-speakers with regard to how possibly the potential misuse of the provision is taking place. Is that a ground for striking down the provision? Perhaps not. The Supreme Court has time and again held the possibility of misuse or even the actual misuse of the provision cannot be a ground for striking down of the provision. In instances where the provision is being misused, the actions of the department or the actions of arrest should be held to be illegal, but that does not lead to a possibility of an argument to say that the provision itself is unconstitutional. Now, since Mr. Nagendra Kumar is also not here, I should point out as to what are the department's possible good arguments to justify the constitutional validity. As he was pointing out the importance to ensure that people who are evading, not just evading taxes, they are cheating the government of the, and not just by evading taxes, but even converting the GST mechanism into a subsidies scheme whereby fraudulent refunds are being taken. A provision of this sort is indeed warranted. And the abuse of the system has to be protected by a provision of this sort, which also act as a deterrent to the assessee. Apart from that, the fact that it is being misused, as I said, cannot be a ground for striking down the provision. Now, this is the case in which Vijay Mandal Chaudhary, where the Supreme Court, 3 judgment of the Supreme Court headed by Honorable Justice Mr. Khanwilkar, has reserved its judgment with respect to constitutional validity under Section 19 of the PMLA Act, as well as Section 69 of the GST Act and various other economic offenses whereby power of arrest has been conferred to officers, to regulatory officers. This would indeed be a landmark judgment in the context of arrest. And as Mr. Sudipta was mentioning, it is likely that the Supreme Court may lay down guidelines while upholding these provisions. And that would indeed, those guidelines indeed might form a sort of a DK Basu 2 with respect to economic, especially with focus on economic offenses. That's all from my side. I've kept it short and tried not to repeat what was already said. Thank you.
Thank you, Shri Karan Sachdevji, for very, very crisp presentation and practical aspects of the GST. We are extremely thankful to you for participating in the program. And now I would request our chair of the IDT committee, Shri Bimal Jainji, to present a plant to our esteemed guest. Shri Sudipta, Mr. Sudipta Bhattacharya ji. Again, I request our chair of the IDT committee to present a plant to Mr. Dharmendra K. Rana. And I once again request our chair to present a plant to Ms. Kanupriya Bhargava. And once again present a plant to Mr. Karan Sachdev. So very good session, and today's discussion has provided us valuable insights. The presentations and viewpoints are truly enlightening, and on the behalf of PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry and my own, it is indeed a pleasure to propose a vote of thanks to all the delegates. We would like to thank you for sparing your valuable time from your busy schedule for giving us the glimpse of related to the provisions of arrest under GST. And I would like to mention that because of some unforeseen developments, many people have not joined physically, but virtually more than 360 people joined the session. And still there are 275 people in this secretary. So this was a great session, and we are extremely thankful to all our dignitaries who joined us. And we are thankful to our chair, I would say dynamic chair, Shri Bimal Jainji, who provided such insights to organize this session, which is very, very beneficial for the trade and industry to make GST a good and simple tax to move forward with more and more ease of doing business at the ground level. Thank you very much, and we look forward to organize such discussions in futuristic scenario, and we organize such knowledge series after every 15-20 days. So we look forward to your kind presence in all the such knowledgeable series. Thank you very much. And I request all the participants and the dignitaries to join us for the high tea served outside this hall.